Hello, welcome listeners to episode 117 of the Plastic Posse. Super stoked to be here. We have a few guests and a few hosts. Some of us are away at a show, but we're really excited to talk about what we've done recently on the East Coast. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Tankcraft, Tamiya USA, Bases by Bill, AK Interactive, and also a massive thank you to our Patreon supporters. Without those individuals and companies, none of this is possible, and we're grateful for your support. But before we kick off and go into the discussion in this episode, let's go around the room, see who's here, see what they're working on, and what they've spent their money on recently. We've been very fortunate that everybody on the episode today we've seen recently, and we're just excited to talk about the AMP show and go into more discussion topics about the hobby that we love. So with that, we're going to go across the pond. I think he's acclimated back to life in the UK. From solid food and other bathrooms that have privacy walls that extend to the floor. Jensen, tell us how you're doing and how's your recovery going?
Recovery's going great. It's like you're saying, it's nice to be back in the land of where you can sit on a toilet and not see someone's cheeks from outside the stall. But yeah, it's great. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of depressed to be back. It happens every time I go to the US. Yeah, I really don't like coming home. But yeah, it's good. I'd say back on my time zone, but I've never really been on my time zone. But yeah, feeling good, rejuvenated again, got the energy back. It's always kind of knackering after like these big events we do, because you're so social for so much of the time. But yeah, nice to come home, unwind. But yeah, in terms of stuff I've been doing, no modelling since I've come back, so I've just spent nearly $1,000 on this room's being renovated, being at TJ's and seeing the dark wooden desk and the painted wall, and that I was just like, okay, my room needs a bit of a spruce up. So the whole room's getting absolutely stripped and repainted. The wood's getting stained. It's getting a whole big job done to it. So no modelling until that's done. I'd like to get it done as quick as possible. Might take a week, I think. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing / going to be doing. As to what I've spent my money on. At the show, didn't spend a lot. I bought some Alpine miniatures because the price was just too good. And I bought the Pig Model M4 A1 with the mine roller. And I see the confused look from Jackson like, yes, it's an A1. Yeah, just because it was a combined kit and Squadron had it for a pretty good price. I was like, yeah, sod it, I'll get it. But apart from that, the rest of my spending went on food and drink. And a very good time.
Yes, and for our listeners, Jensen has learned his lesson from the last time and didn't buy half a hobby shop and then decide to ship it back. So he smuggled it in underneath the VAT requirements of his home country. If you are listening, he lives in Preston. We'll drop the address in the show notes. Feel free to go knock on his door. But no, it was great to see you as always. And like you said, Alpine, I think everybody in this group right here spent a good amount of money on Alpine. And I think we all, or at least some of us, bought 16 scale figures, which I think we're excited to paint.
Nice.
Jensen, what else did you bring home from AMPS? You brought home something you did not mention.
So I brought home 2 builds to finish. I don't know if that's the answer you were going for.
It is.
Okay, yeah.
You guessed correctly.
I brought home Rob Riv from the Insanity podcast. He gave me his H39, the new Tamiya kit that he built on YouTube. Very good video. He gave me that to paint, weather, and finish, and I'm going to do that for the magazine, which is I'm really excited to do, actually. And I also brought home your pretty brand new Takom Tiger 1 with the Zimmerit, and I'd say with the Zimmerit, it's got absolutely everything on. It's got the resin, PE. It's a really nice build. You just came out of your other room like on the last night, like, who wants this? And I just sprinted out of my chair. I was like, I'm taking that. Yeah, so I brought that home. It got home incredibly unscathed, and it was checked. Oh yeah, that's another thing I want to mention. When I took my models there and back, Erlingus made me check my models. They said, you either check them or leave them here. I wasn't leaving them here. But they didn't survive on the way there, but everyone else's models absolutely survived very well on the way back. So very happy about that. Oh, I also brought home 3 medals, but that's not important.
Let's go over to TJ and talk about what he's been working on, his AMPS experience, and if he took anything as well. So TJ, take it away.
Yeah, so I've been working on the Firefly that a bunch of us are building. I got pretty far, I got it all painted. I got some of the details done before AMPS. Then, I had a 5-day break almost of no real modeling because we were hanging out. And I got back onto it this week. I was off Tuesday randomly because the place I was working at, they didn't allow contractors. So I used that day to paint a lot of the details, and then I had to work some extra hours to make up for missing that day. The rest of the week, so I didn't get a whole lot of bench time down. But yeah, I've been working on that. It's progressing pretty good. I kind of like started poking on the M103A2 that I've had because you and JB, you and Doc got the T58, which has the same hull, and I had started that build like right after I got it. It was like an AMPS meeting build because we do build meetings, and I don't like to bring stuff like I'll bring something just to work on there, and that's like the only time I work on it. And I kind of got like I didn't get bored, but I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I got to do a lot of like seam work because the hull is like three pieces that kind of mix together. You got to blend all the seams. It's all textured, so it makes it a little bit easier. But like I didn't have my like you need it. The contour of it doesn't require, but is benefited from the use of a Dremel tool with a bit, which is how I did it. And I don't like bringing that stuff with me to the meeting because it's messy. But since you guys were talking about it and Doc was working on his, I was like, I want to get this thing out. So I was poking around with that. I got the hull pretty much done. I did half the running gear. Running gear is a pain in the so I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I also started spraying some Dunkelgelb on this like piece of Hummel that I've had for like a couple of years that like literally had, a quarter inch of dust on it. So
Jensen, do not ever paint that tiger in your life.
I'm sure. Did you get it at Goodwill or was it at one of those Salvation Army sales? Like,
I'm sure with the amount of dust on it, I could probably wipe the paint off because it had so much dust on it. But yeah, dude, I hate painting Dunkelgelb. I hate that color. The color's fine. I don't like painting it. I don't know how you do it, JB. I put like 5 coats of Dunkelgelb on it, and I used a darker Dunkelgelb too, not like the lighter late war color. I use like the earlier war like darker color because it's going to have green painted over it because it was captured by the Russians. And I put like 5 coats of that on there over brown, and I'm still like, I can see brown under here, and I wasn't shooting super thin paint either. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I miss my green. Green's way easier than this. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. And like Jensen, I also took home a Rob Riv build. He gave me his Ryfield Stug 3. And, he can't paint, but damn, he can build. It's a good build. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I'm looking at it right now. I'm sitting right here on the desk next to me. And I'm just glad one of his builds is finally going to get the respect that it deserves because, they just rot away in bare plastic. And it's a shame, really.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's I still have one of his. I need to paint. It's been a year, so maybe Jensen, me and you can finish him in a timely manner because yeah, like you said, his builds are stellar. He had a bunch there at the show. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let's swing over to our special guest, Zach.
He's special, all right.
So take it away, Zach. How are you and what are you working on?
Well, I'm here, so I'm not doing very good. No, I'm good. I had a great time at AMPS. The trip was just super fun. It was nice to see you guys. I hadn't seen Jensen in literally 2 years at this point. So it was really fun. Spent also quite a large sum at Alpine. I think all told, we probably financed a new car for Taesong. Paid off. It's like his whole house is paid off. I'm working on a Firefly for the little Firefly group build we're doing. I was like going back and forth trying to figure out what I wanted to build with it because there's so many cool Fireflies, but you all somehow managed to take all of the coolest ones immediately right off the top. So I was left with like, well, what do I do now? And so Jackson kind of came in clutch and was like, here's one the Swedes got in 1948. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing that one. So I've been sort of piddling away with that in between doing a lot of yard work I have to catch up on because I was away for a week with you jokers and the grass decided to keep growing, which was kind of rude of it. So yeah, I'm doing good.
That's great. And at the show, you actually took something you finished. So that was
I did, which is
well.
Something of a miracle, some might say.
Yeah. Next time, just include reference material because we really want to see, the historical aspects of your build.
I will make sure to insert like a brain like stint into my brain so people can look inside and be truly horrified.
Well, I was going to say they'd have to find that first. So
it kind of rattles around in there. Every once in a while, it like bounces off on the walls.
Yeah, it sounds like a tambourine when you walk around.
I do, in fact, sound like a maraca.
All right, going over to our other guest, Jackson. How are you, and what's on the bench?
I'm good. Like Zach said, I had a great time at the show. I'm really excited to get into it in our later sections. I noted earlier, it's funny that we've got 3 Virginians on, and I'm going to call Zach that. He's shaking his head, but he does.
If you
live in
ever
Virginia
call me
now.
a Virginian again in your life, I will come to your house and burn it down.
All right, well, we'll say good East Coast representation on this show. Yeah, no, I've been really good. The semester's over for school, so I've had way less academic and social things to do, commitments. So I've had a lot more bench time. Leading up to this show, I was able to finish the gun truck that I'm doing. I managed to bring that to the show. Been working on it for 2 years now, which is crazy to look back on, but I started it after Nats in San Marcos, I think. So super excited to have that done. Granted, it did break right like the night before I entered it, so I have to do some repairs and a couple touch-ups on things that I didn't have time to finish before the show. But yeah, so that was kind of the big thing to get off my bench. Now I'm also working on a Firefly. I'm doing a 4th Canadian Armored Division subject, basically crossing a canal in the Netherlands during Market Garden. And it's got really cool features. It's got a bunch of tree branch camo on it. It's got what I think are German Schürzen around the turret and a bunch of other cool features. It's also a Firefly 1C, so it's not an M4A4. It's just a standard M4, and it's a Baldwin, which has lended itself to a lot of conversion work. I basically started with the Asuka M4A2 DV, which is a Fisher hole. Dave Hobbs helped me kind of figure out what I needed to convert, and just reshaping the turret splash guard, changing the rear hull plate, a bunch of stuff like that. But it's been fun. It hasn't been too difficult, and it's been rewarding enough to keep me going on it. At the show, I bought a Border Models Crusader, and it seems like it'd be a pretty quick build. So I started that actually at TJ's house right after the show, and I plan on knocking that out right after. I think it'd be a fun build and something a little different. But yeah, I'm expecting a lot more bench time over this summer. Should be able to get a lot done. So far, I only have 1 model completion this year, which is kind of abysmal, but that should increase a lot in time for SMC. So yeah, happy to be here.
Sweet. And for our listeners, if you didn't notice, this is the Sherman special, apparently, where we're just going to go deep into minutia that only a few of us care about. No, I'm just joking.
that was lost on 90% of your viewership. But Dave Hobbs will listen to it and be like, "Oh yes, this is what I've been waiting for."
Yeah.
And speaking of Virginians, we have a little club, a little group, I guess you could say, a clique, if you will. And then there's now 10 of us in this clique, and 4 of them are Virginians, so we make up 40% of the Treadheads. I'm going to include you in there, Zach, because you live in Virginia, buddy.
I might live in Virginia, but I am not a Virginian. And that is a very key and important distinction that needs to be made.
Neither is Jeff. Jeff's from St. Louis, but he lives in Virginia, so we're going to make him a Virginian.
He can be a Virginian. That's fine. He's not me.
Isn't your car registered to Virginia now?
Yeah.
No.
It's just like presidents.
It's still not.
You know, 8 of the presidents are from Virginia, or 9 or something. There's a lot. So as presidents, we're just like, Treadhead's just like that, man. Like, we're all from Virginia.
The South shall rise again. Well, on that bombshell, I'll wrap this up. I'll make it quick. AMPS was great. It was a lot of fun. On the bench right now is the T58. Shout out to Dave Hobbs again. He's been a longtime supporter of the show, great friend, and he passed on some T58s to myself and Scale Model Doc. So we're working on those. It's a big, ugly son of a, but it's going to be a lot of fun to paint. I'm going to do a master scheme on it. And very excited. I'll do a full build article on it because it's just so ugly. It's so beautiful. But again, the show was great. We'll get into it. In terms of what I bought a lot of Alpine stuff. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Steel Pot Studios. That's Jeff V from, let's see, I think he was Black Box in the 90s because he was a pattern maker for them on modern aircraft stuff. And then he went to Squadron, and now he started up his own little studio called Steel Pot. And he is on Facebook. Highly recommend our listeners check him out. He has amazing musette bags. They're in both 35th and 16th scale, extremely affordable. And then he did some kind of cobblestone road sections as well. And those were cheap, like a big sheet for $10, and you can easily get 2 35th scale tanks on them. So shout out to him. And then just a bunch of there were a lot of great deals there. I mean, Tamiya kits for $20, $30 flying off the shelves. And again, overall, really, really a fun time. We'll get into it in terms of, again, what's next. We got the T58. I want to finish the Firefly. And then, it's just been great catching up with everybody, and we'll get into it. And let's see, what else? We're going to go on to discussing more of AMPS right now. Typically in our show segments, we talk about what we loved on the Posse page, but it's only fair in this moment. We're going to have a discussion around what we saw on the table at AMPS. And for our listeners, you can see all of this on the Plastic Posse Facebook page. There is an album on there with nearly 300 photos. And what we're going to do now is, again, instead of talking about what we saw posted online from our listeners, we're going to call out some builds that we enjoyed at AMPS. All of them are in picture form, and some of these are listeners. So with that, I'm gonna kick it over to Zach to kind of just start this discussion, and we'll probably go around the room just picking out things we like, talking about the builds and the people that we met. So Scott, geez, oh man, I've never given somebody that great of a compliment. So let's go back. Zach, take us away with what stuck out to you.
I appreciate that. That really makes up for Aaron accidentally calling me Ian at AMPS, which may have been the worst thing anyone's ever said to me. So a net, neutral.
Net positive. Yeah.
Yeah. This year at AMPS, there was, I think, a lot more really nice work on the tables than there has been in the past shows I've been to. It was a very good year model wise. One of my favorite things from the show was a Hetzer sort of sitting like in defilade behind a little berm. She like it has its gun over this berm. And then there's also a cat right next to it who's like stalking some pigeons who are sort of up on the berm as well, kind of playing off each other there. And now, of course, I can't find the photo. It was called Hunting something, but it was a really nicely well done model. The hard edge cam on the Hetzer was really nice. The weathering was great. And I loved the scene, of like the two like aspects kind of playing off one another. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a sweet little build. I forget the name as well, but like you said, really good hard edge scheme. And then the scene itself, the little perching cat getting ready to strike on the pigeons, very, very cool overall. I think that definitely stuck out to me. And I think, unfortunately, that was one of the later builds that was entered in the competition.
I believe so.
It arrived on like Saturday midday, and you didn't get a lot of time to see it, but it was really nice in the access stuff.
I found the name. Hold on.
Yeah, go for it.
The Ambush Predator. That's what it was called.
Oh, nice. Yeah, 35th scale kit. I think it was TACOM.
I believe it was the TACOM kit. Yeah.
Yeah, really well done. I like it. And a good use of the word defilade.
Thank you. That is my big word for the day.
Keep playing war. Over to Jackson. What stuck out to you?
Yeah, so there was definitely a lot of really good stuff. I definitely, feel that is one of the limitations of AMPS is a lot of the models kind of take a while to get out to the table. So a lot of the stuff that I saw was actually very late Saturday, and people were like already packing up models, when they got out. But I think probably my favorite piece was a little vignette that my judging team looked at. It was called Tidy Up. I can't remember the modeler's name, unfortunately, but there is a photo of it on the album. But essentially it's like an American military tractor bulldozer thing. I don't know the actual name of it. I'm sure Zach will correct me.
D7.
D7. There you go.
Caterpillar D7.
Yeah, that one. So yeah, it's basically driving up a beachhead on D-Day or D+1 or one of the following days, and it's towing a Belgian gate. It's just a really well kind of, what's it called? Like composed, I guess, dio or vignette. It's got like a ammo or supply dump next to the pathway it's climbing up, and it's got check hedgehogs and everything. He also did a really good job with the actual base itself. He painted it up like a concrete bunker and did really nice stencil lettering on it. One of the cool things that I read in his model notes was that I think he researched the Belgian gate, like found original drawings and everything, and he either designed it or had a friend design it off of his research. But either way, it was really cool. It was fully 3D printed, looked great. And yeah, I love looking at that piece. It just really captured that kind of like, if you've seen the photos of the days after the initial landings, you just see like stuff everywhere and all these vehicles moving stuff. And it's a cool concept, and I don't see it done a lot. So that was definitely one of the high points. The other one I saw that I loved was I have the title here. It was Battletech 3025, The More Things Change. It was this really awesome, another vignette. It was like a hexagonal base, and it had this scratch-built trench line and this Battletech suit, kind of like a mecha sort of thing. Really cool concept. Mecha normally does not interest me at all. Like I don't even look twice at it. But seeing it in like a actual context of being like a battlefield was super cool, and he did a great job with just the trench line. And it's a very small scale because the mech is so big in scale. So like the figures themselves are, I don't remember the scale of BattleTech, but tiny, and he just did a great job. The modeler's name is Joe Pasek. I actually was able to meet him and talk to him. He's also the one who did the Game Boy, which I'm sure someone will bring up. So yeah, just really great stuff, really great weathering on the mecha. It would just look realistic. He did really nice chipping on the end of the barrel of the arms, and I love looking at it. He crammed a lot of detail into a considerably small diorama, so that was another privilege to judge.
Yeah, that's sweet. His little Game Boy Advance, that sticks out. I mean, it just grabs your attention. And the Belgian gate thing, that is definitely cool. Like you said, you had a chance to judge it and look really close at it. And I took a picture of it because it's pretty awesome. And it's such a unique subject. We never see that kind of stuff.
Right.
So Jensen, from a man of the Commonwealth, did anything stick out to you?
It did. And two of the things Jackson mentioned, because we judged them and getting a real up close personal look at them, they were really good picks. But for me, I didn't judge these, but one that caught my eye, it was again, I unfortunately don't know the modeler's name, but it's a Yugoslavian T-34-85. It's a rye field kit. It's on a base with it's like in a field of sheep, and there's a red rusty tractor in the back left corner. I really like it because I really like that add-on rubber armor. It's hard to call it armor. It's rubber that they was improvised and put on. It's really good, and what I like about it is, well, we all know paint doesn't stick to rubber at all. So seeing it worn down and chipped and looking kind of right, if that makes sense, always catches my eye, because it's easy to chip stuff, but to make things look like they've chipped naturally and correct really caught my eye. And plus, it's really cool. It's a T-34-85, and it's got an M2 on the turret, like 50 cal. That looks really cool. And there's I'm going to guess it's a tire with a tarp over the top of it, and the tarp looks really natural, how it like just sits and folds and flows over the contours of the tire. I just really liked that build, so that one caught my eye.
Do you know who built that?
Not a clue, unfortunately.
He stayed at our Airbnb.
That's awkward. It's again, I actually didn't see it in person.
He's the master modeler.
What?
Yeah, that's Dustin's build.
I nearly swore at you then. Sorry, Scott. Did not know that. I didn't see that. Was it on the table at the Airbnb?
I don't think he put it. Was it on the
it actually?
I don't remember seeing it.
He put it on the pong table.
He did put it on the pong table.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it in the Airbnb, because I remember obviously seeing the M-Wrap that was burnt out. I saw the Panther with the crane. I saw all these builds and I was just like, these are really good. For some reason, don't remember that on the table.
Yeah, I thought he put it on the pong table.
Right, well, sorry, Dustin. That's really, I love that. Well, explains why I love it now. So there was that one, which just, yeah, I just love it. I love a T-34 anyway, because T-34s are just a very attractive tank. And, oh yeah, because it's post-45, so it's 46 to 90 category for the closed top. So that I thought was just beautiful. And the other one I saw, which as I was just like perusing the tables, and I remember seeing this one in person, it just kind of jumped out at me. I think it's because it's red. It was a 148 Jag Panther in red oxide primer with it gets done a lot, but I think this was done quite well. It's got all the chalk writing on it that was applied in the factory. It's got two gantries on either side of it. It's like it's being serviced or something along that lines. It caught my eye. I saw a little bit of a smirk though, and I said, it's being serviced.
That's Bill Moore's.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's Bill's. That was that was in the Posse group build too.
Was it actually in the Brian, I'm so glad I pay attention.
Good look, man. Come on, man.
I mean, I see stuff and then I forget. My attention span's really, really bad. But yeah, I really liked it. Like I say, I was walking down the rows, and that one just kind of jumped out. Maybe it was just the red, but I really liked its finish. I liked how it was displayed. So yeah, great work, Dustin and Bill, who we spent time with this weekend, and clearly I didn't know they built them. Proves I'm not biased.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, it's not just us calling out our friends because they're our friends. They actually build good models.
Yeah, and I clearly just don't listen to what people say or pay attention to it. Like, hey, I built this. I'm like, I don't care. No, but those two a lot caught my eye. There was so much on the table, but it's a bit like what Jackson said. Kind of hard because so much stuff was like coming out of the judging room like 10 minutes before the show ended. So I imagine there's a lot of stuff I missed, but just initially, those two first things that came to head. I really like them.
Yeah, we'll get into the opportunities for the show, but I'm just going to confirm It was displayed on the pong table. It was just tucked behind the Strabokron from Dustin's Panther.
Explains it, because I was staring at that thing for a long time because I really like it.
Yeah, it's really good. And it was behind his Japanese tank that has a alligator, not crocodile. So
got to dig a point for the wrong species.
Digging a point for the wrong reptilian. So TJ, let's go over to you. What stuck out to you on the table?
So there was a couple things. The first thing that really stuck out to me was there's a Hobby Boss Schneider CA1, but it was in like all gray, and it was a Spanish Republican vehicle from the Spanish Civil War. There's a couple of reasons why that stuck out to me. I love the Schneider CA. I think it's cool. I mean, it was a terrible vehicle. It was complete waste of time. There's something about it that I really like. And two, it was Spanish Civil War. And I feel like that's one of those conflicts that doesn't get modeled a whole lot. You see it kind of more aircraft, because that's where a lot of the early German aircraft debuted, and some of the early Russian aircraft debuted too. But there was a fair amount of armor in that Civil War, and I like seeing it because they're cool. A lot of them are very interesting. It's like the super, interwar stuff, or the interwar stuff, or super early World War II stuff fielded for the first time. So I really like that. And then there was it was done off a conversion kit. I don't remember which kit what the conversion was, but it was a Sherman Jumbo with 76 gun in it, and it had the Summerfield matting on the side, which I love. I know I've talked about it before. I've got one that I'm working on now. I think that's a really cool. My cats are fighting in the background, so I apologize if you can hear the meowing. Sorry about that. Now I don't remember what I was saying. Anyways, it was really well done. It was built off of an old conversion kit, which probably made it way more difficult to build, and I just really liked it. It was a good piece.
Yeah, that was nice. And I'll probably just call out a few and encourage discussion, but there were a lot of really nice pieces at AMPS, and I'm just going to go through a few that I liked, and feel free to chime in for those, for my friends here on the co-host seats to encourage or deny my opinion. But no, a few that stuck out to me. I definitely want to call out Steve Reed. His T-34, the whitewash 516, that was really, really well done. I think in terms of Russian vehicles, that was at the top for me. I really loved it. I believe it was the old Tamiya kit that he decked out and did a crap ton of work on. So big shout out to Steve. That's an amazing piece. A lot to be proud of there.
He also brought the that resin MT25,
which
I meant to mention a minute ago, which was gorgeous. I mean, everything he does is really nice. And if you ever need anything related to T-34s, he's your man. He's the David Hobbs of T-34s, one might say.
Yeah, he's super
just
nice,
a little more attractive and nice, and not as nearly annoying as David Hobbs is. But other than those things,
all those yes,
all those things aside,
yes. Let's see what else stuck out to me. I really enjoyed Russ's grill diorama. It was a bunch of a couple Wehrmacht guys at looked like a repair shop with a gantry over top of grill. I think the engine was pulled out. Just really well done. I'd seen it posted online, and his croat was awesome as well. He's a fantastic modeler, super humble, nice guy. Briefly got a chance to chat with him and shake his hand, and really enjoyed seeing his work in person. It was stellar.
There's one I'm surprised actually no one brought up, and I don't know why it escaped my mind because we judged it. The 1/16th M113.
That was my next one I was going to bring up. Yeah,
we judged it. Getting up close and in that, wow! Like it was impressive on the outside. As soon as you get inside, my oh my, that was really impressive. Unfortunately, tracks for me. I don't know who built it, but that was a pleasure to judge. Like, I think everyone at the table were just kind of blown away by the amount of detail and attention to detail with like some of the finishes and just how it was executed. It was really good.
Yeah, it was a 16 scale Andy's new build, intermediate build for that matter.
The figures on it were gorgeous too.
We joked because I think they were the Jason figures.
Yeah.
All those figures together must have cost more than the kit.
And oh my gosh, yeah. That's a $500 build.
Yeah. It was good. It was really good. And I really like, a lot of people do the Vietnam orange dust. Yeah. A lot of people can go a bit too heavy with it, and it's like, okay, now just looks like it's been coated in chocolate powder. It looked all right. Everything just about it was just bang on.
Yeah, it really well done. I met the modeler, and apologies, I forget his name, but damn, it was great. And I think it was his first AMPS, and no one really kind of, it's one of those circumstances where you've never been before. You're like, maybe I should enter intermediate, and it's like, oh man, you could have crushed. It was an easy golden advance, for crying out loud. So it was, major shout out to that build. I freaking loved it. Some others that kind of stood out to me and I really enjoyed looking at. I'll just call out, we mentioned him before for being an awesome builder, but I really enjoyed Rob Ribb's Panzer IIIA. That's one of my favorite. Honestly, it's my favorite Panzer III variant, those big ass wheels on the side. And I thought he did a great job with the two-tone Dunkelgrau and Dunkelbraun. He, just really well done. Nice build. And I think that's a brand new Bronco kit. I could be wrong. So really shout out to him. A few others that caught my eye. There was a Ode to Night Shift there. It was a latecomer on Saturday. And that's, again, it's hard. It was probably hard for show attendees to see it because it came out so late in the day. But there was a 48 scale KV2 winter whitewashed 528, literally, inspired by, copied off of Night Shift. But that's okay. Seriously, it's okay to do that. I mean, the guy nailed it, and it's such a fantastic build. And really, honestly, it's close to a Night Shift level of finish, and I really like that one. And then other stuff that stuck out to me, shout out to Justin Ryan. I really liked his really worn whitewashed Panther, that is. I thought he did a great job on that. Just a really nice chipping on it. Jeff's diorama was okay. Size matters. If he keeps it up, he might get good at this. So I just say keep on at it. That was really well done. Shout out to Jeff. He's part of the inner circle now. Welcome to the Thunderdome. And then one other vehicle that I'd love to call out. There is a South African Oliphant tank. I've never seen one built. I didn't even know there was a kit of it. So a shout out to the modeler there. Awesome. I just thought it stuck out on the table as well. It was this nice bright green color that kind of set itself apart from all of the other drab and darker color vehicles, and just want to recognize that as a really nice build. So overall, really great show. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in our trip involved. Highly encourage people to go. Any other last minute shout outs for any models we missed that we might want to highlight?
Did see one looking back at the album that was really awesome. It was a huge Dior vignette of the Wajak in the middle of getting shelled.
Yeah.
And, the snow was really well done. The pine trees were awesome. It really captures that area, the type of trees. We had the privilege of walking through it, last year at SMC, and it brought me back to that area. He had done all these shell explosions. He didn't do it with cotton balls or anything. I don't even know how he did it, but it genuinely looks like actual, pieces of shrapnel, bursts. And what I didn't realize until literally I'd packed up my models and was leaving the main hall, and I looked over to kind of that kind of sidewall where they had BJ's memorial build and then the Stewart stuff. He had set it up on the table and plugged it into the wall. All those explosions are LED lit. Didn't even know that, but it looked awesome. And I wish I could have, I should have gone over there and looked at it more, but I just wanted to highlight that one. I don't know the modeler's name, but really great stuff.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I had literally the same experience. I loved the build. I took pictures of it. And then when we were wrapping up, I saw it against the wall and it was plugged in. And gosh, he must have there's a lot of lights in it because like you said, every burst is illuminated and really, really nice. And it's a real disservice to the piece. I kind of wish it's he would have left it plugged in over there, and maybe AMPS next time can think about that where, putting stuff that lights up near a power outlet. Cause damn, it was really cool and well executed. And the snow was awesome. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it was a great piece.
Well, welcome, listeners, to our interview for this episode. Really excited today. Got a special guest who recently was crowned AMPS Master, and then two friends of the podcast as well to help us along with this conversation. So with me today, I'll introduce our friends first, and we have Ian Bonner, iBones Models. How are you today, sir?
I am well. How are you, sir?
Outstanding. And then we have Aaron Kuck, only gold medals from Ohio, chiming in. How are you today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks, John.
And then, I see the case behind you with your favorite models in it from other people.
Yeah. I've got some real works of art from yourself, from Ian, from Doc, and now TJ has one in there too, but I've got that under like a cardboard box so it doesn't burn anyone's eyes.
Drastically improved.
And then most importantly on the line here today, we have Dustin Dias, the recently crowned master at AMPS. Super excited to chat with him and get his background. So Dustin, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you very much for having me on.
Awesome. And for our listeners, this is Dustin's first time on the pod. So let's get into it. With that, Dustin, let's just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and then how you got into scale modeling. Because I'll be honest, I don't even think I know.
Well, I probably have a similar story to everybody else. Started, modeling as a kid. Just little Revell cars and stuff. You'd take them out once you build them and shoot them up with the BB gun and blow them up with firecrackers. That sort of normal stuff. I grew up in Greenville, Pennsylvania. And it's about 2 hours north of from where I'm at now. I live in Wellsburg, West Virginia right now. Moved down here due to a career change and been loving it ever since.
That's awesome. And for our listeners, Greenville, Pennsylvania is about within 10 minutes of where I grew up. And it's really wild to have Dustin, a scale modeler that's as obsessed as I am and all of us, I'm sure, to grow up that close. But we didn't meet each other until very later in life, I guess you could say. Gosh, I'm talking like I'm 80 years old. But, I think, Dustin, when was the first time you started entering in scale model shows? Because I think around the early 2000s, I started remembering your work.
Yeah, so I'm thinking around the Sharon show time, like the SFASCOMs, I started entering into those. My older brother actually he built models too. And he was like, "Hey man, you need to go check out these shows." I'm like, "What? Model shows? Like what is that all about?" And, we've had built models and stuff. Like I said before, we blow them up with firecrackers, but I'm like, well, maybe we could, enter them into these contests. So yeah, SFASCOM, I guess that would have been probably maybe where we started seeing each other, but not knowing each other, but that would have been later.
Yeah. And when we started, I think the first work I do remember years, and we briefly chatted about this before we started recording, was that train diorama, the Beast.
Yeah. The train. Oh my God. With the tape. So
tell our listeners about that project. No, you're not getting away from it.
Yeah. Let's just all go ahead and admit at first, and probably still are, we all kind of suck at first. I'm not going to lie. We all kind of just build just to build to have fun. And that's what it is. I had this huge train diorama. I think I got the inspiration from Aaron Skinner did a review of one or something in a magazine at one time. I was like, oh man, that looks really cool. So I was like, yeah, I want to build one of those. So I did. I tried to replicate it, and I was like, man, this is really cool. But it's like, what do I do for this huge base? It's like, I don't have anything to cover this base. I was like, I got this tape. I could wrap around it. Freaking started taping it up, and it's like, well, that looks like tape. So I slapped a bunch of paint on it to kind of hide it. And it still looked like tape, but I was like, you know what? It's good enough. Hopefully the rest of the model will kind of deter from that, but it didn't.
Well, I remember this piece because it's, what would you say, about 3.5, 4 feet long, 2 feet deep, big hill with a big bridge on it. There's a tiger half hanging off of it. I just remember it being massive.
Yeah, no, it was big, and it was, and one thing I've learned over the years is you don't want a whole lot of, for me personally, I mean, you can build a big diorama all you want. I used to obviously build the big ones, but for me now, it's like less is more, less to me is more, because you could get more, I guess, into a smaller compact diorama than you can trying to make it big and just overwhelming. Essentially, it's like you have to be the one to fill in all that that space. You know what I mean? Now for me, I like to just start cutting them down. Like even now I'm working on a project now. I'm just like, how can I cut more off of this to make it more efficient and, make your eye catch all the stuff, versus having this huge area to scan and like less quality, I guess you would have in like a big diorama like that versus like a smaller one. You could pack more detail into it. So that's kind of like where I'm learned from, previous builds like that.
I'd argue that's like even like that's an acquired skill. Like that's the mark of a good modeler is being able to take a giant scene and make it smaller, because that's, I think, what we all struggle with. You see these dioramas and IPMS shows that are 4x4 boards with a bunch of dead space and 6 million figures or something like that, but I think you've mastered that clearly because you're an AMPS master, but yeah. I think you killed it, man.
Well, I do appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. And like, I couldn't have done this without you, JB, setting us up for all this and meeting all you guys and inspiration and all that stuff. So I do appreciate it. And it's still kind of overwhelming. It's still surreal being an AMPS master. That's a whole different class. Those guys are up there.
Yeah. Now you get to hang out with Jeff Feller all the time.
Yeah. He's my new favorite, I think. Man, his stuff is great. I love it.
Coolest guy.
Coolest guy, greatest work. But getting back, I think you nailed it on the head there. Is when you look at projects today, it shows people are learning, because, man, I remember there's always, well, I think it still carries true today, that you go to a show and there's always usually there's like one big diorama. It's just huge. But I have found that, like you said, the best dioramas are a lot smaller now. And I appreciate you saying, like, you're looking at every opportunity to like keep cutting it down so there isn't wasted space. And I think the piece that you won master with is a great example of that, where you're looking at the scene, you have the blown up MRAP, you have the dude in the suit, you got the culvert. There's areas of interest all throughout that. And maybe just talk about that piece specifically and kind of where your idea came from and how the implementation process of bringing that story to life went.
So the MRAP was it was supposed, well, you did another article we were working on a project together. That was part of a project for a book that was supposed to come out. So I was asked to do a wheeled vehicle, I guess a explosion or a wrecked vehicle, because the theme was wrecked vehicles. So with that one, the Ryfield model was perfect, because that thing is super detailed. I don't know if anybody has that in their stash or has built one in the past or whatever, but it's awesome. It's amazing. You could get aftermarket parts for it and stuff like that. I got the resin wheels. I got some of the cabin work, the photo etch, stuff like that. Yeah. So for that one, I wanted to do a destroyed MRAP. I was going to do like the whole front end blowed off, because I was doing like research, finding some pictures and stuff. And these things are just demolished. I mean, there's like nothing left of them, but their design is to basically break apart like that. You know what I mean? So they're designed to like just shred into pieces to absorb the impacts. I didn't want to have this one completely like shattered and blow it up, because I wanted to kind of keep it subtle. So what I did was I started building it and got to like where a good position where I liked it. The composure, I guess would be a better term, composure where I liked it. And started moving things around and shrinking the diorama base up, because I didn't want to have a bunch of parts laying all over like trying to simulate like all this pieces everywhere. So I tried to keep it as tight as I could. So I originally was going to do like the hood blowed off and like laying over on the side, like over the guardrail or something, but I ended up keeping it together. And then Greg actually was like, we were in a group chat and he was like, "Hey man, why don't you, I was like, "What do I do with this wheel?" It's like, it's not sitting right. He's like, "Hey, why don't you just put that flat tire on the resin flat tire on the passenger side and just get rid of the driver's side tire?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that make it sit a little bit lower and make it look more, like extreme, like blowed up, I guess, extreme damage to it." But I was like, "Well, why don't I?" Looking at these pictures, I'm like, "Well, I could put some, I could have it like with the tire on there with the cords." And then that's when I think I was like, yeah, I got to build these cords on these tires. So I started gluing these cords inside of this rubber tire to come with it. And I was like, man, that's starting to look good. And it just went from there. It was just one thing led to another. And I was like, it just started sitting right, and started filling in the empty spaces with like the figure and garbage. And there's like a pallet on the other side. And I put that little pole up, the little tower up with like the speaker on it for, I don't know, they play their music or whatever, their prayer over the loudspeakers and stuff. Just cutting it down and making it compact like that. Like you said, it's easy to look over it and get a good sense of what the heck's going on.
Dustin, I think maybe not the first time I met you, but the first big memory I have was at AMPS 2018. I think that was the Buffalo show. And I think I met you through JB, which is probably a common thing for like half the modeling world, I feel. But I remember my vote was you would have been AMPS Master in 2018 if you're blown up 1/16 scale Panzer IV, which was a work of art, I thought. And I know you model a lot of blown up, destroyed type vehicles. It seems to be not everything, but definitely quite a few of your vehicles you seem to model destroyed, and you do it extremely well. What is that? Where does that come from? What made you decide that was something you really like to do, and get into not just the normal model, but like you said, the cords on the tires or the complete interior or burn up engine? What does that come from?
Well, thanks, Aaron. I do want to make a correction. It was 2019 was that. I was
19?
telling everybody 18. I think when we were talking before, but it was 2018 is when we first met. That was Dayton.
That was Dayton. That was when you stayed at my parents' house.
Yep. Yeah. And then I had the blowed up Tiger on the rail car and all that stuff. But to go back to your question is, the Panzer Wreck books. It's just, there is a ton of inspiration in those. And, just, do you guys, I don't know if you remember him or not, but do you guys remember Scratch Mod?
Oh,
Rob?
yeah, Rob. Yeah.
Rob.
Yeah.
He was one of my first, I guess, seeing online. He was doing the wrecks and stuff. I was like, I love it. I love just seeing those vehicles in their deteriorated state, like abandoned, just left and forgotten, that kind of.
Yeah, for sure. I remember his stuff too, being online a lot and seeing the blown up stuff. Like, man, how do you do that? And so I can definitely see that being your inspiration. So
yeah, so I don't know whatever become of him, or is he still around, or
he still builds a little bit. I heard that he actually moved to Europe and he doesn't build that much. But I believe he was at the 2019 Buffalo show, because that's where I met him, and he had some of his work with the Vallejo table, I thought.
Yes, he did. Wrong. Yep.
Yeah, because he had that excavator, wasn't it?
Yep, from Master Models.
Excavator. Yeah.
Yep. He had that, and he was working on a Fawn, an L Fawn or whatever. Das Work one. He had like a half track in the back. It was all like torn to pieces.
You're right. Yeah. Exactly. The tractor. And I think he had an 8-rad there too. But anyway, yes. That was the first time I met him. And I agree with you. His work is an inspiration. And he's on the cover of the Vallejo set as well that you can pick up at Hobby Lobby. So for our listeners, that for a visual connection, that's who that is. But going back, I think Aaron picked on a good project I'd love to talk more about. 2019. AMPS. Yeah, I'll just say AMPS Master came 6 years too late, because that was the best piece there at the show. And talk a little bit about that build. We'll share some pictures online, and for our listeners, every project that we talk about with Dustin, we'll be sure to post it online so you can follow along visually. But let's talk about that one specifically and the inspiration for that specific subject, because I remember a 35th scale maybe that influenced you on that.
Yeah, so that one, that's always been a favorite photo of mine. And I was like, I'd love to replicate that. So I did. I was actually messaging with Mig at the time, and he said, do it in 16th scale. Cause I was like, I want to build this. Cause he did he did one. It was you had the book. I know you had the book of it. It was, I can't think of the name of it, but
Rarities. It's an old
Rarities.
book. Yeah.
Yes.
Euromodelissimo published it back in the early 2000s, and I saw that piece at AMPS in 2003, I want to say.
Yeah, so I seen that book somewhere. at a model show like a long time ago. Whenever I was like, man, it was like on the cover of the book. I was like, man, that looks cool. Or I was flipping through it or something and I seen that. I was like, that is freaking cool. The way that turret in that upper hall is just crammed down into there. I was like, I'd like to build something like that someday. But, with the resources and all that stuff, it's like, we didn't have that kind of stuff back then. But Trumpeter come along with their 16th scale Mark IV. And I was like, yep, I'm doing it. So we started messaging each other. He said, yeah, do it in 16 scale. So I did. Pretty much reworked that thing like 90%. Everything was redone, scratch built, changed up the engine bay, did some interior work. I had to build all the framework on the bottom of the turret basket and all that stuff. Cause it was pretty plain. Like it's not very impressive, but it's basically just a base kit, like base interior. So you got to add all the plumbing and all that kind of stuff to make it like detailed, because obviously all that stuff's exposed in that particular scene. So yeah, just went to town on that thing. It took me about, I don't know, I want to say maybe 6 or 9 months or something like that. I had to take a break from it for a while. My son, my youngest son, he got appendicitis and he was in the hospital. And that was a pretty rough time going through that, and at that project, I was doing that project at the time. So that gives me, when I was working on that thing, he was, recovering from that. And it's just a very special piece for me because of, just what it is, everything I went through to get it to where it's at.
That's a really interesting story. And I'll be honest, I didn't know that. And I think it's really touching. And also, especially around certain models being tied to certain life events. And I love the background of that information on your Mark IV, because it's certainly a piece that I think out of everything that you've built, I'm biased, but I freaking love it. So if you ever consider getting rid of it or selling it, I have first right of refusal. We're just going to log that right now. But I think that's an amazing piece. What I appreciate is, I would consider you, and maybe Aaron and Ian can back me up, I think of you as a risk taker. When I look at your projects, there is no shying away from rust, grime, dirt, blown up shit, water, ice, like all these things. And I think that project exemplifies that from you, where, gosh, the snow was freaking perfect on it.
It's, you got to take a risk. Otherwise you're not going to do it. I'm just winging it, really, to be honest with you, because I've never done anything like that before. So I'm just like, hey, I'm going to attempt to do this. And if you mess up, well, it's blown up. So you could kind of get away with it a little bit more when something's a wreck like that. But you gotta kind of do it to a point. You can't just grind up a bunch of plastic sprues and just throw them into a hull and be like, yeah, that's a wreck. No, you got to kind of take your time and make things appear what they would, I don't know, replicate of something like warped steel or something like that. You could use like aluminum tape, I guess, like crinkle it up and replace parts like that to make it look like crinkled steel and stuff like that. But as far as with that particular one, I tried not to use photo etch at all unless it had to be done. I don't really care for photo etch. Like I know they make it like the fenders and all that stuff, photo etch, you could replace all that stuff. I'm like, nah. What I did to simulate the thin steel on those fenders was I just took the existing detail that was there and I took like an X-Acto knife and you could scrape the plastic just enough, cut it, raise it to make it look like that. And it does. It helps. It really improves the detail to simulate, like thin metal and stuff like that. You could even do it on 35th scales. This project I'm working on now, I've been going around cutting up, lifting up little fender pieces and thinning things out. So yeah, it could be done.
I think that's something that's always impressed me on your models is, like you said, I know you don't really care for photo etch or stuff like that. And you always have some unusual approaches or thinking outside the box, maybe is the best way to say it, to find a solution to recreate something, especially when it comes to damage or something that I think a lot of people get locked into, looking just within hobby resources for, the solution without thinking of, just common household things or, simply reworking the plastic parts that, you can make quite believable if you want to. It just takes a little bit of time and effort, and you definitely show you commit to doing that, and it pays off in the end result. So
yeah, you can, like nowadays with these kits with the full interiors and Ryfield and all these newer brands and stuff. I mean, they're detailed enough, but if you want to start wrecking them up, that's all you got to do is take a knife and start lifting little pieces and stuff like that. But yeah, think outside the box, just take a risk and just go for it. And you will cut yourself, because I've cut myself a lot.
I actually got to meet you. So all these guys obviously had met you back in 2018, 2019 timeframe. That was about the same time that I met JB and Aaron. That was my first model show in Columbus, Ohio. And then I met the guys, and then obviously, JB's our Kevin Bacon with the 6 degrees of JB or whatever. Every model in here can trace their lineage back to him. But, I got to meet you at the Cleveland show. I believe it was this year. And I think February, was that right, Aaron, where I came out and stayed with you?
I think it was late last year. Usually Cleveland's at the beginning of November. So
okay, so yeah, so it was, recently that I got to meet you, but obviously these boys have talked about you nonstop. So when I got there, they, we were driving up there, and Aaron's like, "Oh yeah, Dustin built a killdozer," which I thought was like, man, that's not something I've always thought. Looking at that main kit that was out there, that was itching for it. But I'm pretty sure you didn't even use the main kit for that one, right? Did you scratch that, or how did you go about doing that?
So for the killdozer, it's 25th scale. So I used the AMT, I don't know, the old dozer kit. I guess the only dozer kit they have, but it's an old one and the fit is terrible. It's awful. So I used that one. And then I just used had some styrene, some thick styrene. I just started welding this cab together with some extra thin Tamiya glue, and Tamiya putty is what I use for the welds. You just roll them out, and then you just weld them up like old Night Shift does, and then just slap the cab on it and start weathering away.
It was one of those things where I love the subject, and it was particularly known how, you didn't get quite to be the AMPS master with your Panzer IV. I'm just glad you didn't build one in 1-to-1 scale and destroy the town after that, man.
No, I'm good, man. It's all good. It is what it is. I'm good. Maybe it was destined to be this show. So
it's because I was there, right?
Right. Yeah. We all stayed in the same house. So
yeah, good vibes.
And when you had Saint Scott Gentry there, to intercessing for you, right?
Right.
Yeah, what you didn't see is actually after we all went to bed, I got up to go to the restroom and I saw him, and he was actually sprinkling holy water on everyone's builds, and that was the difference maker. Actually,
there we have it.
That was what he did. But real quick, I'll end with the Panzer IV topic, but I do want to ask a final question on that. Is when you were going through that, what was the hardest thing? Because it is a really big project. I'm sure there was a lot of bumps along the road. But, as you look at that project, it's a couple years old, but I'm sure there were moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get through this thing. It's killer. What were those what was one of those moments, if you don't mind sharing?
So you got to know when to stop, I guess. You got to know when to stop. Like for me, it's hard. Like if I'm weathering something, like I got to know when to stop weathering it, because I didn't want it to be like completely burned out, because it wasn't. And you gotta control yourself a little bit. You gotta make sure that, it's within reason. I guess that would have been the hardest part, is trying to get it weathered enough to make it to convince you that it was, blowed up by its crew.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think JB mentioned it. Like you're not afraid to take the risks, and not just subject matter such as killdozer. I mean, and it's funny because I think at that Cleveland show, weren't there like 2 other killdozers there, like smaller scale or 3D printed or something like that? But oftentimes you find when people take a unusual topic like that, and especially if it's assigned some sort of social importance, or is in pop culture, they don't do a good job of it. I don't know a nice way of saying that, but it's like they get so excited about building the topic that they forget that they also still have to make a convincing model. And I think the Killdozer is probably one of my favorite models of yours, because it's such a pop culture icon, if you want to call it that. Yet it's a great model. It's a fantastic build. If you would have done the same quality build and weathering on on just any standard armor model, it would have just been beautiful. But the fact it's such an unusual topic, it just catches your eye on the table, and you start looking at the wear on and the rust on some of the metal panels, and just the overall look of the build is really sharp. And I know the Triple P has talked a lot in the past about people having distinctive styles and being able to look on the table and see somebody's build and know whose it is. And often I think I can tell yours when it's on the table, because you do have a pretty distinctive, what I think is style. I think you're pretty, let's call it MIG-like in style, that you definitely want to go, all out with weathering and with finishing, that I think a lot of other people stop at like 80% and they just don't, they're scared to go further, and you'll go that extra step, and it just really sets your models apart on the table. And a lot of times, when we run into each other at some of the local shows, usually Cleveland these days, but sometimes Columbus or Dayton or wherever. And you don't post a lot online of builds often. I think you're starting to a little bit more on the Triple P page, but sometimes it's a surprise to see what you're bringing. I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know he was working on that. But when I see it on the table, I'm like, I'll bet you that's Dustin's. And so you've definitely got a style. So I don't think there's a question in that rambling monologue. It was just more of an observation. So.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think I have a style, and there's a lot of people that say that too. They're like, I knew that was yours before I even seen it, or knew who posted it. As soon as I saw the picture pop up, I knew who it was.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And that's how people recognize me. They're like, I know that was you over there. I know you built that wreck. I'm like, yeah, that was me. So that's kind of cool to see people come up and say, they know what you did before you even say anything.
Yeah. I think another one I remember seeing like that was I think it was a Yugoslavian T-34-85 that had what was it, like rubber? I think it was like supposed to be conveyor belt, so that they chopped up or something like that into like supplemental armor on the side. And you had, if I recall correctly, you'd used some pretty unusual material to recreate that as well.
That Yugoslav build, that was I think that was a group build. I think we all built that Ryfield kit. I don't know, it was some time ago, but yeah, that was, I used, advertisement magnets, that you stick on your fridge, and they have like called Roto-Rooter or whatever on them, but they're real thin, and you could like crack them up and bend them and cut them real easy. And I just started slapping that on there, cause I like that. There's a reference photo. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, where it's like, there's that T-34 just sitting there and it's got all that rubber on it, and there's like tires and stuff all over it. And thought that was really cool, so that's what I did with mine.
That was great work.
Yeah, that's great. And listeners, that's the same piece that Jensen talks about when we review amps and we're going through builds that he enjoyed. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know who built this T-34 with the rubber, but it was great. I'm like, he stayed with us in the Airbnb. It was on the Pong table when everybody was looking at stuff.
Yeah, there was a 48th scale one I think somebody did for the 100th episode. The group build. It was there, I think.
That's Frank. Yeah, Frank is a good fan of the podcast. Amazing builder. He took best armor there, but that's his 48th scale one too.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I like that. I like those like Mad Max style like builds. The Mark IV is one of the Panzer IV is one of my favorite tanks. Just because it's so, I don't know. It looks wicked with all like this armor on it, and just the extra armor around the turret and all that stuff. That's one of my favorite tanks.
Yeah. And you talk about style. Now you're much into the destroyed phase, but I remember when I first got to know you, Mike McElhaney, our cohort and partner in crime in a lot of cases, before we really knew you, you were always referred to as the railroad guy, because every one of your dioramas had either like railroad tracks in it or a railroad car, or, that was the theme for you.
Yeah, no, the railroad stuff, I like the railroad stuff. This one I'm working on now actually has a railroad theme in it. So I'm going to try to get my wreck, my Panzer IV. I'm working on that. I got a BR-52 that's chopped in half. And then I'm going to put like maybe a little swampy area on the side. So I'm going to have all three. In this one.
Outstanding. That's great. Yeah. When I think back to your first builds, railroad times, but let's even rewind before that. And I'd love to use this as a little mini segment And I'm going to share my screen, and I know our listeners can't see it, but I'm going to share it, and I'll post these pictures online just because you're an AMPS master now, but everybody starts somewhere. And I want to throw up some older builds, and I want you to just talk about them and the materials you used. And the first one I'm going to throw up is the Hayate, the Frank from Spasm Con, Shenango Valley Area Scale Modelers. I think this is 2009 time frame, but our listeners can't see it. But it's a downed Japanese aircraft in a very unique setting. And Dustin, talk us through this one and the materials you used, and just to show where you started at.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, looking at this thing, I can't believe you found that photo of that thing.
I have receipts on everybody.
It's a 1/32nd scale Japanese fighter plane, and I basically destroyed it by ripping the wing off. It looks like I did a pretty good job of scratch building the inside of the wing and all that stuff. But the base, the base is where we get interesting. So it looks like something you'd go to Pet Supply and it would be in the aquarium section. So, but I believe that I did use like aquarium, like weeds or something or whatever. And the base is like expandifoam. And I tried to make like little sea urchins and like coral pieces by painting them bright colors.
I was going to say, what are those red things? I don't even know what they are.
They're like, I don't know, some kind of sea cucumbers or something. I don't know.
Kind of remind me of bell peppers.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, I think the little nameplate on the front is like just the instructions I cut off and just like glued it on there. And it is what it is.
I love it. I love it.
I think we talked about that before. I sold that on eBay. Like when I first started like needing some money, I was like, yeah, I got to sell this.
Somebody started an aquarium and they needed a little piece in there for their hermit crab to hide behind.
I was about to say, I feel like it's at the bottom of an aquarium now with angelfish swimming by leisurely around the.
No, that's one of my first, early stages of building. And that's what I mean by taking a risk. You just got to just build something, use what you have. And I think I even supported the, like those tall pieces of seaweed or whatever. I think I just like wrapped like green floral wire around it. You could see it in there.
It's a great example though, again, what we were talking about earlier of just thinking outside the box. I mean, most people would go to like the railroad section of the hobby shop and find that bright green grass or whatever in the fake trees. And you're down at PetSmart, looking at, the aquarium section. It's something that not everyone would think of doing. So it's cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the next tab.
Oh boy.
Another aquarium piece, I feel. So
yes.
Tell us about this one, what the subject is. And I think this is around the same time frame.
So that's it's a midget submarine. I think it was what did they call that? A coastal or something. So again, the wreck theme, sunken ship, which I always thought sunken ships were cool. Like looking at pictures and stuff. I always want to go and like actually like scuba dive and go down and swim around in one of these things. But yeah, so my little theme there is obviously a torpedoed or sunken submarine, and those little mines that you could see there, those are ping pong balls that I glued some kind of, I don't know, they were like little shell casings or something on them to give them like the little triggers. Like if you bump into them with a boat or something, they'll go off. But that's what I did for those. And I like super glued the chain so it would stand upright. Yeah, there's a big tall one back there. And then I painted these little scuba divers. I think I bought a box of just random parts at a show one time, and there's these little scuba diver guys in there, and painted them, redid them, painted them up, and then stuck them on there. I think they're on there on that one. But yeah, so I scratch built an interior for that thing, and everybody kind of thought it was cool. Like, oh yeah, look at that. And then you could always hear somebody talking. It's like, well, there's no pressure chamber and this and that, which there wasn't, I don't think. I just did whatever my imagination at the time was. It's like, oh yeah, that looks good. That looks convincing, but You know, there's always those guys that you hear, they're like, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. Okay.
You found an expert on submarines somehow with that, you know?
Yeah.
In the Midwest.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Tangent, but there was always one guy at the Shenango Valley Area Scale Modeler show. He was the submarine guy, and he would always complain after the show. There's always one. And I'm pretty sure, Dustin, the person you're mentioning is that guy.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, it's cool. Like I said, it is what it is. And these are some of my earlier pieces, but that model, I actually gave it to my neighbor because I got tired of looking at it. It was like, it's taking up space. I'm like, get this thing the hell out of my hobby area. It's like, do you want this? And he's like, yeah. So he ended up taking it. That was a gift to my neighbor.
That's awesome. What's interesting too is you kind of just hinted at it where, it's not 100% accurate, but guess what? When people go to the show, where did I always see people flocking to? The diorama section. What pieces? Your pieces. What are people talking about? Your pieces. Who cares if you're 100% accurate on a 1/72nd scale, BF whatever, but your pieces are extremely memorable, and that's what I love about them too. So we're going to go to the next one.
I think this one holds up really well too. Just, I like how the groundwork blends with the moss or whatever you want to call it on the algae, I guess is probably the right term on the submarine. I also like how the submarine hangs off the base. Again, talking at the beginning about everyone has these big, huge bases, and this one's very simple and goes right to the storyline of the wrecked submarine. So
yeah, trying to cut the amount of work you got to do. You got to slim the base down.
Yeah,
and I always like the models that like that they would hang off the edge a little bit. Even now with my models I'll do now, I'll shrink them up to where like maybe something's poking over the edge just a little bit, just to kind of give it that little extra, I don't know, 3-dimensional appearance, I guess.
Yeah.
It just kind of, your eye kind of just goes off of the base a little bit, like following the end of a gun barrel or something off the edge of your diorama base.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next one. Still the same time frame. I don't have a picture of the entire base, but it's your wrecked Tiger with the Butte Panzer driving by it.
Yep. I do not have that one anymore. I believe I cut the wrecked Tiger out of there. That was a big one too. And all that grass and all those weeds and all that stuff, I had to glue each and every one of those. And I can remember listening to people as I was walking around, you'd hear somebody, oh man, that must have taken forever, which it did. It was a big ass base. I had to glue all that stupid grass down. It was like baby's breath or something. I think it was like dried up baby's breath. I think I got it from Pacatans or something at the time, and glued every one of those things down. And obviously around the Tiger, I had it burned, so it would look like it was burned up. But yeah, no, that one, that's another big wreck. That was an old Academy, I want to say, Tiger.
That sounds
at the time.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it had a lot of stuff that was not accurate about it, but that's all I really had at the time. So I was like, yep, it's going to be a wreck. So yeah, that one I ended up selling on eBay too. But like I said, I cut the Tiger out and I redid the base, and then I put it on eBay and I sold it. And then the rest, I think I threw it away or whatever. But I still have that Russian tank that's got the German markings on it there, that KV.
Yeah. I love it.
It's probably in a box somewhere. I don't know. I'd have
but
to
again,
find it.
This is another great example of you taking risks, I think, because back when, this is probably a 10 or 15-year-old piece, I bet.
Yeah, easy. That's got to be early, for me, building dioramas and wrecks and stuff. Yeah.
And I admired this piece so much, and I focused on taking pictures of the Tiger because, one, people weren't doing burnt out, blown up vehicles that much back then. Also, I just thought the progression of the groundwork from clearly there was a fire and it got out into this heavier kind of brush and burned it. And I just really liked how you executed that from a really ashy, bare earth back then into a dry field with the Butte Panzer driving in the background. I thought it was friggin' awesome.
Well, thanks. But yeah, that was something else. Building that big thing.
Well, I also and I just noticed, you were smart enough to cut the wooden handles off of the tools and then leave their metal heads on the vehicle.
Yeah. I just noticed. Now that you say that, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I did do that. And I took the time to cut the handles off and leave the metal behind. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good. So I think I have another piece. This is yours as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. That's mine. Yeah, that was another one of the what is that? A mortar launcher with the loader?
Yeah, Carl
I don't know
Morser with
the Carl
munition schlepper next to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know all the technical names, but yeah, that's I always liked the big railroad heavy machinery. You know, that thing there was the epitome of it, and that was I was like, I got to put this thing in a big dried up field, and then you could see the blowed up T-34 in the background there. But yeah.
This is another one where you probably hand glued all those baby breaths.
Yes, that was another one where it was. You could hear the people talking. They're like, "Oh, look at all the underbrush and all that stuff. That must have took forever." It did.
And then that's really it from your old bills. And listeners, I will put these online. Don't worry. One other piece I do want to talk about specifically, and I can pull up a picture here, but you'll probably guess what it is the Tiger One that was blown up on the rail car. That's one of my favorite pieces of yours as well.
Oh yeah.
Just from a few years ago.
That one I had at the Dayton show, the Dayton AMPS. Aaron, you were there when I stayed at your place. But that was one of the first shows I went to, and I guess that's when I first started getting really into like, all right, I'm going to take my time. I don't need these huge bases. I don't need all this extra stuff. I'm just going to focus on the main meat and potatoes is going to be this blowed up tank sitting on top of this rail car. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. And then your last episode? I think you did which ones you want to be buried with.
Yes, the Pharaoh builds. What are your three? Yeah.
So it's going to be the Mark IV, the blowed up Mark IV. That would be 1. 2 is going to be that blowed up Tiger that's on the rail car, and 3 obviously is going to have to be my MRAP because that one put me over the edge.
Yeah, man. I think, like I said, I think the Tiger one is my favorite of yours. And then now that I'm scrolling through stuff, I see this from 2017. What do you know? Another railroad with a T-34 blown up on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one there. Yes, sir. That one's in, I don't have that one anymore, but yeah, that was, I think I did take that one to Dayton as well. Yeah, you can see my Vorpanzer in the background there. It's blown up.
Yeah, go figure. Blown up.
Oh, yeah. Tracks. Yep. Yeah, there's a Vorpanzer, and that's one of my favorites too. You know, that thing's been around and it's been to a lot of shows. It's officially retired, but everybody loves that one. I put a Verlinden Verlinden resin interior in that one, and I scratch built some like plumbing and stuff on that one too. But no, that's one of my favorites. I just like the composure of that one, the way it's sitting.
Yeah,
like the track's kind of like hanging off, it's kind of like popping out. But yeah, that one was really cool.
So for a project like this, and for our listeners, I'm talking about a 1/35th scale, full interior, blown up wreck, smaller vignette. Like, how long does something like this take you?
Usually, I don't like to make them last forever, so I'll try to get them done within like 6 to 9 months or so, somewhere in that time frame. If they take any longer than that, then they're sitting on the shelf of doom. But something like that with a little simple base like that, probably working on it consistently about 4 months.
And most of that's glue in the grass, right?
Yeah, no. So I found a little life hack for those is, you get like moss, and then you get that preservative fluid or whatever it is. And then you could just, there's my, that mine roller I seen on there. You were scrolling through that picture.
Yeah,
but
I'll pull it right
so
back up.
For the grass, now I like to use moss and that gets like the bulk of the grassy areas done. And then you just preserve it. Once it dries up, then you could paint it whatever color you want.
And that's your tractor too, right? Dead deer.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's a, AMT Dead Deer. I did, like old abandoned vehicles and stuff like that. Like I love that stuff. Like going out into a junkyard, dude, I could spend hours just walking around the junkyard, just looking at all the wrecks and the abandoned stuff and just like things just like left in the mud and like the sediment sets over it and just like nothing's touched it. It's just left there, forgotten about. But like that John Deere, that dead deer, it's a 1/25th scale AMT backhoe, which those kits are very hard to find now. And if you have one, you're very lucky. I ended up selling that one. I redid like all the hydraulics and all that stuff on them so they all worked, like the rams and all that stuff. I used like aluminum rods and styrene tube. So like, so the cylinder would actually actuate and stuff. You can move it around. You can pose it. And then I just put it on that little base there and little for sale sign, I think was like a decal I stuck on a piece of paper or something. But yeah, that's something like you'd be driving by down an old dirt road or something. An old farmer had it sitting out there trying to get rid of it. It's just been sitting there abandoned for years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd like to do another one of those now. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, man. And this is all old school. This is like back in 2017. So I'm bringing out all the old ones.
Oh,
I don't think, I think I remember talking to you, for our listeners. This is a Panther G in a wet setting. I don't think you were a big fan of this diorama.
No, that one, I actually got that when I first, do you remember when we first met? Like Mike was the one that actually introduced, like I seen you around. And then Mike was like, hey, you need to come over to JB's house, or John, he called you at the time, but he said, you need to come over to his house and look at all his stuff, all these models and all these. So I believe that one I bought off of you.
Oh, yeah.
That was a Tamiya.
Right. Yes.
With the steel wheels and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I did. And that's when we started talking. I'm like, hey, I do work right behind you here.
Yeah.
It's your parents' house. So.
Oh my gosh. I remember this. So yeah, we're going to go a tangent real quick. So this project was built. I'm looking at the date stamp. This is March 2017. I graduated grad school in 2016. I went back and lived with my mom for a few months that summer. And that's when I was selling a large portion of the collection. And I remember connecting with you. And for our listeners, let's just say this is, again, how small this world is. I live in Podunk, nowhere, Pennsylvania, and off the beaten path, again, 5 miles from Dustin, where he grew up. And then we get to talking, and I'm like, Dustin, where do you work? And you're like, oh, I work at this fuel company. I'm like, well, what fuel company? Because there's only several there's like one in this area. He's like, oh, what is it? National Fuel, right?
Yeah, National Fuel. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, so that's Clark, PA. And no listeners, the building that Dustin worked in the wintertime when the leaves were off the trees, I could see through the woods. And between my house and where he worked, we used to play paintball in those woods. So that just shows how small the world is and how close somebody can be in this super niche hobby and be just obsessed and just be that close and not even know it. It's wild. Wow. I'm glad you remember that. And I remember seeing this piece at TriCon, and I think we talked about it more at SpasmCon later in the year.
Yeah, I don't really remember a whole lot about that, but like you said, I tried something. I tried the wet setting, and it just didn't work. Maybe it was enough just to convince you that it was wet, but it just really looked like.
But hey, man, Aaron's used to that, so he loved this piece.
Oh yeah, that's one of his favorites.
I completely forgot about this until looking at these pictures. So yeah, listeners, I'll have to pull it up. And I think was this yours as well?
No, that one was not.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
You had it was the Panther made to look like an M10 in the Ardennes, backed up to the Chevrolet building. God, I saw it in Cleveland. I don't know what year it was, but
yes,
that one was. It wasn't blown up, amazingly.
Well, it was knocked. Oh, there's my.
It was
car.
knocked out. It was knocked out. It wasn't
knocked out.
On fire, I don't think, was it?
JB was the one that actually printed the stencil out, the Chevrolet stencil for those. And he's like, I cut like 5 of these things out, and the cricket kept jamming, so you're getting what you're getting. And he said it to me. I was like, dude, that's perfect. I was like, I'd have to hand paint that if I didn't. But
there's a top down view, and I know I have a forward looking view of it. So just stand by. And our listeners, this is that famous scene from Malmedy.
Yeah, it's got the Chevrolet. There's my Mad Max too. But yeah, it's got the big Chevrolet emblem or the logo, the advertisement in the back of it. It was a pretty cool
wall or
on a building. It was actually a car dealership is what it was.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, my favorite piece, like we were talking, is your. Oh man, I love the Panzer IV, but damn, this Tiger one that's blown up on the rail car is
that
amazing.
one's pretty popular. Every once in a while, we'll get a notification on Facebook. So and so liked every single one of the pictures that I posted that long ago. I'm like, damn it, just like one instead of liking every single one.
Yeah, I'm gonna find that picture real quick, and again for our listeners, thanks for coming along this journey. I'll make sure that everything's posted online. But yeah, it was. Oh, look at that piece of bucket build from Aaron Cook himself.
That was one of my favorites from you, Aaron. That's cool.
Thanks.
Oh man, I'll find it. But
the egg tank.
But yeah, for our listeners, you carved the entire wall of this diorama, and then like we were talking, you put the Chevrolet sign on it. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I used he said drywall, I think, and then I just carved it out of the drywall. So it's pretty rigid. It's pretty heavy. It's heavy in the back. So yeah, and if you flip it around, there's like actual photos of the real vehicle on the back. I like laminated it on there, and then that way, it's like, why is there a Chevy emblem in Germany? Well, it was a dealership over there. Everything's in French. You flip it around, and it's like there's the actual photo of it.
Yeah, and I've been to that site in Malmedy in Belgium.
Real quick, while you got right there, see that my T-34. Yes,
this was amazing. I love it. All the bricks you made.
So you could tell my inspiration from that was Adam Wilder's, what is it, Red Tide Rising?
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of my favorites, like, of all times. That I actually have this magazine sitting on my bench right here just because I was going to mention that during this interview, but I was like, yes, that inspiration come from that build of his. I love the rattiness of that T-34 with the bed spring on it and all the bricks and crawling through the factory and stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah. Aaron, that's one of your favorite pieces too.
For sure. Yeah.
And for our listeners, again, we'll post it. This is a T-34 cresting over some rubble. How many bricks do you think you made there, Dustin?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I made a lot. So if you want to do bricks, get the MIG production brick mold. It's got the 3 holes in it. Buy that silicone mold and what I use for mine is body filler, like body putty, like the quick icing or whatever it's called. And then you could mix like pigment in it to give it to like a dark red tintish, whatever brown, whatever kind of bricks you want to make. And they harden within like 10, 15 minutes instead of setting, because you can only make like, I don't know, maybe 20 bricks or so per mold. And then you could just sit there and crank them out. You could have like 3 or 4 molds within like an hour. You can make a lot.
That's slick.
Yeah, I did your same thing in my tribute to that same build of Adams and my tune tank, going back to that again. And I had a 48 scale brick mold that was the same thing. It was that silicone mold. It makes like 20 or 30 bricks. I used some sort of red craft clay though, so it was already kind of a brick red color. I still usually painted them, but at least if they got broken apart or scratched, it was still somewhat of a brick color. But I agree with you. That's the best way of making in-scale bricks is you use those, plus then depending on the material you make it out of, they're easy to break apart, and you can make however many you want, just how much time you want to take doing it. So
yeah, yep. I did the same thing with my my Panther F with the disc camo. The one I took the amps, you guys saw that one there. Yeah. That one I made a ton of bricks on it too. The flipped over railroad car. But yeah, those brick molds are like, the technology nowadays is just out of control. It's amazing. I love it. The 3D printing and all that stuff. I don't have a 3D printer, but I'd like to get into it. But I can appreciate that kind of stuff now, like the full interiors and the 3D printed parts and stuff like that. We're in like the peak of our hobby. Like, we got it made, essentially. Everybody, there's people that say the hobby's dying. It's not. Like, the hobby is thriving. Otherwise, these companies wouldn't be making and producing these kits with these interiors and all these 3D printed parts and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And, while we're on the topic of this, and Aaron, it's a good question for you too, is one of the things Dustin and I love about your builds, and this is a great example, is T-34. It's not only the bricks, but just all the rubble and debris. And Aaron, you've talked about using like kitty litter. What, what other kind of ground scatter or debris what do you use essentially for that filler, Dustin?
Yeah. So with the brick mold, you'll get some of the bricks and stuff will break, obviously, when you try to release them from the mold. And those are good, but yeah, so like kitty litter is a good one. You got to get like the old school kitty litter, not the stuff with like the scent in it. It's like glittery or whatever. But yeah, even just dirt. Like go into your backyard and dig up some dirt with some roots and some gravel in it, some like rough garage dirt, I guess would be a good source. Like I think Mike uses that or sells it or something, but it's good. I mean, just different, it's just a variation, just different textures is whatever you think is the best texture for the base.
Yeah, I think that's a lot like what I've done is I've taken, that you sweep out the garage and all that gravel and rock remnants that, fall off your car or, it's rained and then they drain off your car with the rain and dry off, and you put that in a dustpan and kind of filter it out. And it's just a little bit of everything in there. And other thing I do is I take a thin layer of like plaster of Paris or something, just kind of roll it thin and let it dry out and then just break it and crack it. And so for like a brick diorama like that, like rubble, I'll like glue, if I want to shape a base, I'll put foam down, then glue a bunch of bricks onto that. And then I'll just shake that, whatever that debris is on top of the bricks to fall in between the bricks and everything else. Then give it a good dose of I use the AK Interactive, the rubble glue, or I forget what it's called, sand and gravel glue or whatever it's called. That stuff's magical to me. It just glues it all in place.
Sand and gravel glue, yes. Make sure, you got to make sure your base is sealed though, because that stuff will attack the foam underneath.
Yeah.
So other than that, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I use too. Yeah.
It also comes in a very similar bottle to white spirits, so you got to be careful because I'm pretty sure Dukes used it once as white thinner, and it was fun.
Not the desired effect.
Not the desired effect, correct.
Yeah, and Dustin, outside of sand and gravel glue, are you using like diluted PVA as well, white glue, or mostly that like sand and gravel glue?
So yeah, PVA glue diluted, that works good. What I'll do is just squirt it down with some isopropyl alcohol first, and then that way it gets rid of that capillary action. Because if you have like fresh dirt on your diorama base, it will beat up. It won't suck down in. So you just squirt her down with some alcohol, and then it goes right into, it'll suck it right up. But for like the heavier stuff, it's like sand and gravel glue is what I use.
Mm-hmm. And what are you using for snow? I guess I should have asked that earlier with the Panzer IV.
So Night Shift just did that video where he did the snow diorama. That is basically the same stuff, same progress is how I did it. Same thing. The AK snow.
So we've covered a lot of historical projects, talked a lot about technique, coming up over a little bit of an hour. As we roll into the tail end of this segment, when you look at your builds today, what's on your bench and what's that next project that you're super stoked to share with everybody?
Oh man, the next one, what I got on my bench right now is that Mark IV with the BR-52. There's going to be a train depot or a train station, and it's going to be blown up. I think I was talking to you about getting a bell. I need to find this little 3D printed bell or something. Initially, I was going to have it like the upper hull, like ripped off and like leaning against the building with the gun barrel touching the bell, like it rang the bell. I was going to, I don't know, think of some kind of clever name for it, but I think just moving it around and looking at it, I think I want the hull down on top and having it just like twisted off, like it's still on, but it's off. And you'll see. I mean, I could post pictures of it as to where it's at right now. I'll spend a lot of time on like composure. Like I'll spend a lot of my time moving things around, building a little bit. Like I like to build my bases with the model. You know what I mean? I will build them with, like, that way I could kind of get a better visual of what I'm after. Like for this one, I've been trimming it down and moving this tank around. I was like, yeah, I want this up ringing this bell, and I was like, I don't really like that anymore now. So I want the hull down on it now, just moving it around and kind of going with that theme right now with the train, wreck, and water is going to be this one.
Oh,
and what was the other? What I have on bench and.
Yeah, and I think you kind of answered it. And I'll definitely print you that bell because that's easy. We'll chat after this. I'll find one on Thingiverse. That's a piece of cake, no issue.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Man, I might trim some of this building up too, because that's less building I got to build. So, but like I said, I'll post a picture of it as it sits right now. But yeah, it's coming along pretty good, and I can't say it enough. I can't praise these guys enough. These new kits, these Ryefield, man, this thing is going together like Legos. It is one of the like nicer kits I've built. This Mark IV. It's the Ryefield J, and it's like the box art it's like going through like a railroad yard or something. It's got all this dust flying in the background, but if you have that kit, it's pretty sweet. It's got clear parts too, so.
Dustin, I appreciate you joining us. I do have, and maybe this is a corny question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We're sitting there in the awards ceremony, coming up to announcing master, your name gets called. Like, what's going through your mind? Like, I'm just curious. Like, did you think it was going to happen? What was your, what was that entire experience? What was like? Because, from the crowd's perspective, I actually thought it was really awesome to see everybody give you a standing ovation. But like, you in that moment, but did everything slow down? Did everything, it's a blur? Like, what was that moment to you?
Yeah, no, it was, it's surreal for sure. It was like, whenever they said what it was, a USM rep, and then as soon as he said my name, I was like, oh my God, like the hair stood up on my neck. I'm like, yeah, it was just kind of surreal. I was like, that's not, they messed up or something, like, for real. But no, it was like walking up there, and then everybody started standing up. I was just like, you guys, stop it. Like, come on. There was so much good stuff on them tables, like, just like, I was the guy that, they chose me. So, I mean, it was surreal for sure. It was like emotional, I guess. And it was just one of those core memory things that, I'm never going to forget that. That was amazing.
Hell yeah. It was great. And, certainly our group, and I think everybody else there was super happy for you. And like you said, people standing up, people patting you on the back, and then having that moment to sink in and putting your awards next to the piece and seeing those people come up and take a picture of the entire thing. Like that's what it's all about. I mean, that was so cool. And the community support during that moment it exemplifies what AMPS is, that brotherhood. So
yeah, that's true.
I thought it was awesome. So big question as we tail out of this segment, and I'll give it to Aaron and Ian to ask anything as kind of a closing question. But mine is simple. Like, are we going to see you in South Bend next year?
Absolutely. I got it. I mean,
you got to defend the title. You got to put something on the table.
I'm going to be staying at Aaron's house halfway or whatever.
Yeah. Invite's open.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, any last words, Aaron?
Are you going to be staying with the Triple P next year at AMPS after the experience?
We didn't scare you away.
No, I'm going to have to, dude. And you can tell I got my voice back, dude. I couldn't even talk. Like, I wanted to like hang out and party and stuff, but I was like I couldn't even talk. I sounded like, I don't know. I had no voice.
All right. So you're locked in for a bed then, and for 2026.
Yeah. So the question is, you gonna put the two masters together in the same room?
Oh, that's right. Well, you have your own wing now, you and Jeff.
Yeah.
You two SOBs get the top bunk. You've achieved everything already. You don't need good night's sleep. You can give those. You're making sacrifices for the greater good now. You're in that position.
Oh.
So no, it's certainly going to be exciting. Can't wait to have you there. Ian, any parting shots?
So the question I have for you, because we were talking about this a little bit, do you have a build, being that you're AMPS Masters and everything that you do is Golden Masters Best of worthy, of course. Do you have a build that you've done where you just kind of look back at it and you're like, that wasn't my finest hour? And I don't mean like, you're starting out in the hobby or whatever, because everybody's got those builds where you're like, oh, I've come a long way. But just the ones where you're like, I kind of banged that one out, and it wasn't really my finest moment. Do you have one of those?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to give it to the bridge. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that was that was pretty. Like I just put it out there. I was like, yeah. Like I thought it was kind of cool, but I was like, everybody's gonna know that's freaking tape on there. So.
No, man, but I tell you what, I remember that diorama, and I remember a lot of people going around it, so it definitely made an impression.
Yeah. I mean, it was the sheer size of it, I guess. The big dioramas are going to gather a bunch of people around it, but again, you could have something small and simple and then pack a bunch of detail into it. Less is more, in my experience.
For sure. Well, Dustin, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. This will drop with our AMP special where we talk a lot more about the show, and can't wait to see you again. I think we're going to have to wait till AMPS next year, at least see you in person, but we'll definitely see you online and look forward to your next project. So thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to it. And I will see if you guys come to the local shows. I'll be there.
That's cool. Right. You and Aaron and Ian will be able to see each other. This is the Union episode because the other portion of the episode for AMPS has all the Virginia boys. So I'm just happy to see some Ohio and Pennsylvania folks on this side.
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
All right. Thanks, listeners, for tuning in, and we will catch you later. Ian and Aaron, thanks for joining us as well. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All right. And that'll do it.
So with that, we highlighted some models that were on the table. We've talked about this show called AMPS. I think we're going to just dive a little bit into the AMPS show, what was behind our trip there, and just the whole point of this is obviously to relive some great times, but also illustrate to our listeners what is possible with the show. When you look at a show like AMPS, where it's located, whether it's by your friend's house, by historical sites, like these things are much more than just a show. They're an experience. And we're just going to go through kind of like what our itinerary is, give some shout outs to some of the folks that helped us along the way, and just really help to pull those people in that are thinking about going. And I'm pretty sure this show's going to return to Camp Hill in 2 years. So the whole intent is to kind of build you up and be like, oh man, I do need to go next time. I need to experience this. I want to go. I got to see these things, and plan some time around the show itself to really enjoy it. So with that, just going to kind of kick off the first thing we did, and then I'll pass the torch to other individuals. But to start this whole journey off, it started on Wednesday. So for our listeners, AMPS, traditionally 2-day show. Now it's kind of shifted over to Thursday. It opens in the afternoon. People start to get settled in. They even do some judging around that time. But our trip started on Wednesday, where I flew in the morning on Wednesday. Jensen came over, and then we were off to the races. TJ, Aaron, and Ian picked us up at the airport, and it was nonstop until they dropped me off 4 days later. With that, we went over to TJ's, and maybe I'll kick it over to you, TJ, because this is the first time you held everybody at your house. I'm typically, I'm grateful for this experience. So as a first-time party planner, organizer, just talk through maybe what it's like to host your close modeling friends at your house. And again, this is the whole point of this, is to encourage our listeners to do the same. So TJ, I'll kick it off to you to kind of, what was that experience like for you, having some folks that you couldn't imagine being at your house?
I'll start off with the fact that I am not as good at it as you are, JB. So
that's BS.
This is, I think I mentioned it when everyone was at my house. This was the first time I've ever hosted a party at my house, really for anyone outside of like kids parties with a couple of kids. This is the first time I've hosted a party for like adults myself. And I've lived in my house since 2018. So that alone, just for me, like on a personal level, was amazing. My wife looked at me at one point when pretty much everyone was there. I don't think Jackson and Zach were there yet. They didn't get there till late. But I think I had most of other people. So at that point, there was, I think, a dozen of my friends in the house, if not a baker's dozen, 13. And she looked at me and she's like, this is the best day of your life, right? I'm like, yeah, you know what? It kind of is. Like, this is pretty crazy. And we kind of talked about it, I think, on the way to dinner Sunday night when a lot of us had kind of went our own ways. But yeah, just the variety of people that become friends over the last, 5 years or so is pretty nuts. And the fact that I had almost all of them at my house. The only one that really wasn't there out of our core group was Doc. He couldn't get an extra day off. He was invited. We tried to tell him, hey man, you're driving down to Camp Hill, leave a day earlier, drive another 2 hours, you'll be at my house. So unfortunately he couldn't make it, but it was just really cool. I've never really had that before. And I made a bunch of tacos. Essentially, I did like a taco bar and made some Mexican street corn. That was okay. I've had better. I wasn't pleased with it. Everyone said it was good, but I was like, I've done this better before. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I think 13 people. I think when Zach and Jackson finally showed up, I think we bumped up to like almost, I think 15 people is the max number of people that I had at the house. A lot of whom spent the night in my basement, sleeping on blow-up bed. So I apologize for that. I was going to get some more, but my wife's like, oh, we have some. And then of course we get them out and they've got, holes from our cats in them. So luckily I have a large couch. I think 4 or 5 people were sleeping on the couch.
Four grown men were on the couch.
Four grown men were on the couch, which is, it's pretty funny. I would like to say I got a better night's sleep in my bed, but I did not because we didn't go to bed until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And my wife's alarm for work goes off at 5:30. So yeah, I got like 4.5 hours of sleep and I was drunk. So I did not get the best night's sleep, but yeah, it was pretty cool. I know Aaron and Ian got to my house first. I left work early and I work 20 minutes from my house right now. So I was able to leave work a little early. I got there, got showered up, and they showed up and we were like sitting on my couch. I'm like, man, I can't believe I got Ian and Aaron sitting on my couch in Northern Virginia. Like, this is nuts. Like, I literally can't, I would have never thought when we first like became friends, like they would drive all this way to like hang out at my house. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I was also happy that my wife has now met all of my friends. I don't think there's anyone she hasn't met, which not that it really matters, but I think that's kind of cool because, she, there for a while when she's like, who are you always talking to? I'm like, yeah, it's just my friends. You wouldn't really understand. Now she knows automatically like who I'm speaking with. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I don't really know what else to say about it. We had a good time. We drank a lot of beer, ate a lot of food, ended up down in the basement, just kind of chilling on the couch. I think we put on night shift, like as is tradition, poked around on my model desk for a little while. Cause I got a lot of real estate. I got a lot of stuff to play with. And I think we did some repairs. I know I've worked on a couple things to get stuff, ready to go and just, carried on, had a good time and laughed. And yeah, it was pretty great. I can't ask for a better way to start a modeling show trip. It was, and my heart was full that night. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, we made sure Scott had the functioning air mattress. Everybody else had to fend for themselves. I think I got stuck to the stick 'em on the back of your couch a few times.
Yeah, so if anyone has cats, they know that like cats are jerks, right? And they love to attack furniture. And they do it, and I've tried to stop them from doing it. Like, it's not like I let my cats do whatever they want. There is rules in this house, despite the fact that there's 4 of them. And to help prevent them from attacking our couch, my wife got this like sticky stuff that you stick to the couch. It's clear, so you can't really see it. Of course, you can, but they don't like it, right? So they won't touch it with their paws because it sticks to their little toe beans and it freaks them out. So it was recently replaced, like probably within the last couple of weeks, but no one's ever really down here. And I know not to touch it, but, there was there's like jean prints on it from people sitting on the back of the couch. So there's like blue jean, fuzz all over it. But, JB had set his, air mattress up like right behind it. So if you rolled over, you just like stick to it and you're like, oh no, I'm like stuck on flypaper.
Yeah, it was like,
I apologize for that. Yeah.
3 a.m. and you just hear JB got herself stuck to the couch again. Okay.
Yeah. What a trip. And like I say, listeners, I highly encourage you to do stuff like this before a show. It was a lot of fun. And
I had Rick Lawler at my house.
Yeah, man. It was
right?
great.
Like, it was pretty nuts. Our buddy Angel, who runs Micro World Games, he's a well-known vendor in this area. Rick went to MFCA the week before in, I think Penrose, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. Instead of flying back to the West Coast, he stayed here and he stayed with Angel. So I think they were already in Camp Hill, which is less than 2 hours from my house. So when I was telling Angel that, hey, I'm having everyone over, you're invited if you would like to come. He was like, yeah, I'll have Rick with me. I'll ask him if he wants to come. So they said yes. So they drove I think 2 hours almost to get to my house to hang out for the party, which was nuts. And as I'm telling my wife, I'm like, that's Rick Lawler. He's legit one of my modeling heroes. He's made probably the best diorama that's ever been made ever. Burden of Sorrow for the uninitiated. And I'm like showing her pictures of him. Like that's this guy. Like he's right here. And, it was pretty nuts.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was great to see Pat there, Mickle, Dan, Jeff. It was a good show. And the food was great too. Jensen was in his happy place from day one. So it was nice. And then major shout out to Pat Brown, because that's kind of where the day started on Thursday. Getting to the show at Camp Hill, very fortunate that we drive through some historical areas in Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And on the way there is this little place called Gettysburg, Gettysburg. That's how Pat used to say it. But what's interesting is Pat Brown, shout out to him. And then I'll probably turn it over to Jensen to kind of talk about the day, and Zach and Jackson, feel free to chime in. But we went to a lot of historical sites in the battlefield, but major shout out to Pat Brown. He does this, essentially, I'll say for a living because it's part of his job in the Army, but he is a true historian, he truly knows. He's a subject matter expert for the Battle of Gettysburg, other Civil War sites, and he does battlefield tours and educational sessions with general officers from the U.S. Army and other, company grade and officers, and essentially Army leadership.
Staff rides.
Staff rides, yeah. So he knows where things happened there, and he is extremely knowledgeable. And we were very fortunate to have, 3 to 4 hours with him, personal guide through the Battle of Gettysburg, from the first shot to kind of Pickett's charge and everywhere in between. But with that, maybe I'll turn over to Jensen to talk about some of the memorable places that we went and just the experience itself. So Jensen, take it away.
Let me jump in really quick. You undersold the amount of time we were there. I believe it was closer to 6 hours.
Oh, dang. Okay. It went quick, maybe.
It went fast as hell, because I think we met for breakfast at 10, about 45 minutes away. So we got there around 11, and we did not leave until I think almost 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our day started at a Waffle House. That was an experience. It has the reputation everyone says it does. But yeah, so Gettysburg, this was something I was really looking forward to doing, because for some reason, I don't know why, in my head, I always had this preconceived notion that Gettysburg was the biggest, most bloodiest battle, but in just one big field, and it happened in a few hours. In my head, that's for some reason all I imagined. I didn't realize it spanned over such a huge area over a couple of days with so many soldiers from literally all over the States, or the States at the time. So one of the first places we stopped by at was basically it's this small little, what do you call it? It's not a plaque, a little monument to where the first ever shot was fired. In that fight, in the battle, sorry, not fight. It's not skirmish. And I thought that was quite cool, because it's just they literally have a monument, and this is what we learned going around the battlefield. There's a monument for literally everything that happened. There's practically a monument for every soldier. They are just everywhere. But yeah, we went to the first place we stopped was where the first shot was fired. And Pat was great here, because he literally, rather than just say, yeah, here's where the first shot was fired, he explained how the soldiers were positioned. He even had our group stand in line, and then had us in formation for how the soldiers then were. He explained what was happening before the shot was fired, as it was fired, and then what happened afterwards and the resulting effects. That was really cool. And then a bit like how we go around Europe, hop back in the car, head to another location, get out the car. So many cannons, everywhere. That's so cool to see. I love cannons. My order's going to be all over the place here, so you're going to have to just kind of jump in and correct me, because we stopped, and this is where I'm going to start forgetting all the generals' names. I see the finger go up.
So I just want to mention, you mentioned all the cannons. I did not know this, but those cannons are all historically, accurate in location. I just thought, oh, these are just monuments everywhere. Mm-hmm. But no, in fact, these were the positions of those guns during the battle.
Yeah. And obviously we had Ian with us, and his curiosity obviously was just like, okay, so what type of ammunition were they firing at these soldiers? Were they just cannonballs, or were they like a bit like a shotgun shell sort of type of thing? And it's just incredible how much Pat knows. Like, because I even asked him, I was just like, at this point, were they using black powder and ball like revolvers, or were they on cartridges? He was like, oh no, at this point they would have been on cartridge like revolvers. And yeah, just there was this big open field with the road that runs through it. And he was saying how, like, one of the generals of said campaign, my terminology is all wrong here, but he was just like, you look back over in that field, and that's where he was stationed. There was a family there. He said, we need to use this as our, like, general's operating base, which really, when you look at it, it's like, that's in harm's way. That's not far at all. You could see that, I think, like, it was a church steeple. It's just like, okay, one random stray round, that general's out the fight, because you look at how things are done nowadays, or say in the Second World War, or more modern campaigns, the generals are a pretty good distance away out of harm's way. But in the Civil War, I've noticed, especially at Gettysburg, it's like, okay, they're actually within screaming distance. So that was cool. And like literally just looking around, it's like, oh, they were there. This unit was there. The enemy was actually only a few hundred feet like in front of us. And he was explaining how like the cannons could hit, like, I think, was it within a mile's range, if I'm correct, and how there was the general officer, I forget his rank, how he was on a horse and a stray bullet just banged straight through the head. There's a big monument for him there because it was a bit more fieldy and stuff at that point. We spent quite a long time there because it's a long road with just monuments all the way down it. So while everyone was talking, I literally sprint off down the road and try and get as many pictures as I can of all these monuments because you don't want to miss anything while you're there. So again, another location that was really cool. We back in the car over the road to, again, location-wise, not very good, but we climbed some stairs into this big metal tower. Not the big one with all the kids on that was we were all going to die, but the shorter one that give you a really good view of everywhere. But this is where I'm going to pass it on to like Zach and Jackson to like fill in the story because my timelines here get a little bit messy. And I'm going to just throw them under the bus because they're both muted, and I think it'd be fun to see them squirm.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to it because this was honestly one of my favorite parts of the trip. And it's funny to say that because the night before at TJ's house, there's a moment where some of us were sitting at the table and JB was across from me, and Pat comes up and plops down these like pamphlets of like, you know, just page turners of just, you know, information about Gettysburg. And he's like showing them to us, and I like look up JB, and like I almost think we had like a little bit of like an eye roll, like, oh boy, like this is gonna be like going back to school. We can't just do what we want. But then, yeah, the next day when we were actually going through that, I think I was reading through those pamphlets more than anyone else, and like I loved it, just learning all the nuances. And like you said, Pat knows everything. I mean, I had a lot of questions, and he was able to answer all of them. But yeah, we essentially, he took us through the 3 days of the battle chronologically. And so even though there's a lot of driving back and forth, we still kind of got to have like a timeline of events. And it really helped me at least understand what happened when, particularly like seeing kind of the Union line on the second day, going up and down that from Cemetery Hill up to Little Round Top was super cool. You know, standing where the Union Third Corps and what was the General Sickles, I think he was the one who had his Third Corps like move forward and created like a salient. That was super cool. Like just seeing it all contextually was awesome. We did a little bit of the Confederate lines on the second day. There's an observation tower that we were able to go up, and seeing it from like a bird's eye view was really cool. It was really funny watching all of us like get annoyed. There was like, I think 2 or maybe even 3 like field trips that all kind of converged on this observation tower while we were up top, and there must have been like 40 kids up there with us. Like it was jam-packed and
easily 40. And I think there were more like 4 field trips because there were distinct like grade age groups. Also, huge shout out to the like 5 random 4th graders from Pennsylvania who said I was doing a great job climbing the tower. And I'm not that old.
Hey,
stop saying I'm old.
That was knackering. That was a tall ass tower.
Yeah, no, I'm going up this tower, and like every flight, I have some little kid be like, "You can do it, young man," and I'm like, "Shut up."
There's a couple funny things about both of the towers that we went up. The first one, which is significantly smaller, we were all at the top. Most of the people had left. There was like one guy up there, an older gentleman, and we're like, we need to get a picture. Where the hell is Scott? And Scott's like making his way up the tower, and we're like, come on, Scott, like you're holding up the picture. And this guy, without hesitation, just immediately starts like ragging on Scott. And I'm like, this guy gets it. He absolutely gets it. This is hilarious. And he was super nice, took a great picture of us. And then the other tower, which is significantly higher, that's the one that had all the kids in it. Two funny things to me happened there. I can't remember who I was climbing up with. It might have been Scott too. And like we get up, like we're almost to the top and we're like taking a look around. And I think Scott said something about like, man, this is a lot of steps. And this kid on the way down was like, don't worry, you got it. Not like ironically, like being very positive and friendly. And that's also where we found out that Aaron is deathly afraid of heights. Because he stood in like the center of that tower and would not move to the edge. And like he looked visibly uncomfortable. And I'm like, you're all right, buddy? He's like, I don't like heights. I'm like,
in his defense, there's 50 kids there with us. And
baby is his defense.
It was, I mean, shout out to the engineers who made that tower, but that was starting to wobble. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, that was a really funny experience. They were just loud and chirping at us. It was funny.
There was just so many. That's the thing. It's like, okay, this tower has to have a limit at some point. But no, the kids were like, no, we're gonna squeeze up here.
Yeah, an entire class worth of fourth graders. One of the other things that I loved doing was I don't remember the name of the private cemetery, but it's right next to like the national one, right across the road from Cemetery Hill. And we got to go walk around that and try to see where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. And the building that's in a lot of those photos, like the entryway to the cemetery, that's still there. It's changed a little bit, but you can very clearly see the same arch and architecture on it. But it was really fun walking around that, trying to kind of pinpoint exactly where the speaker stand was. I kind of dragged everyone along like we were about to leave, and I was like, I really want to go to the other side of the fence, try to like stand where Lincoln stood. I think that'd be cool. And they obliged, and that was super awesome. I found a really awesome article online. It was like I think 3 years ago maybe, where there's a bunch of different theories on where the stand was, and there was this new, I guess, research or whatever that kind of pinpointed it potentially more accurately. So that was super cool. Pat and I talked a lot about it, but yeah, huge shout out to Pat. I mean, it was awesome. I've been on, like, I typically avoid guided tours whenever I'm exploring something history related, because I like doing my own thing and, going and finding it myself. So like I said, I kind of had some apprehension at first, but he is so good at what he does. He knows everything. He, presented the different spots on the battlefield and the story in a way that was easy to understand. And like, he taught me stuff that I'm not going to forget. I mean, I had a bit of a better perception of the Battle of Gettysburg than Jensen did, but nowhere near to the extent that I do now because of Pat. So huge kudos to him. Love that man. He's awesome. So yeah, yes. I'll yield the floor.
I think a nice little mention as well that he told us, which may get missed on some guided tours, was the young lady who went to make bread during the battle and she took us stray. Like, I think she was the only civilian to have died in the battle, and took us to her grave and the big memorial stone she has. I think that was a very respectful, nice little mention he also gave. Yeah, I think what Pat does, he tells us a lot of stuff that a lot of people would miss or feel isn't important, which it's all important. I think some of the stories he also told, and again, like we say, he just knows everything, is, say, when we move to like the final part of the battle, is when he told us about, there was a officer, general, leader, again, rank unknown for me, or I've forgotten, but he was getting his men water, and he was told, you're not allowed to do that. So he was going to be, I don't want to say court-martialed. I don't know what the equivalent is there.
Yeah, I mean, it's court-martial. Yeah, they were going to
court-martial, just for allowing his men to get water. But the battle was like kind of, it was on edge. So he was just like, we don't have time to deal with this now. Once the fight's over, we'll court-martial you then. Give me your sword. And then the fight starts to happen. The big battle happens. He's like, I have no sword. I'm going to grab this wooden axe, like this axe for wood, and just start screaming and charging at the enemy. And the Confederate general's just like, nope, not dealing with that, throws his sword down, and he's like, I'm having that. This is mine now, I'm taking this. And I think that's one of the coolest stories. Like, you imagine that stuff happening in movies. You can't imagine it happening in real life. And I just thought that was one of the coolest mentions and stories to happen on, like, the final day of the battle. Again, so glad it was taught. There's a statue of said officer general with the axe on the floor and his new sword. I was just like, that is a very cool man.
As I recall, I believe he was a lieutenant or something around there in a Vermont unit.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. It's just kind of crazy. And then when he took us to the placements of the cannons for where they're facing the big open field, and the very far end of that field over the road, you can see, if I'm correct, the Confederate memorial, because it's on that side. And as he's talking about it, you can kind of just imagine the big final encounter, how it got to the point where it wasn't cannons and firearms, it was skirmishes with, like, fists and swords, and how I think it was the Vermont unit that was further down. Oh no, it was were they called 45-day enlisters, or 90 days, or 60? It's a number, but it were enlisted for such a short time. How they just came round, big flank. And it's just, again, hearing it, imagining it, at the place it happened, really puts it into perspective. It's like, I don't want to say war is cool, but the story it's moving, and it's an experience that, again, like Jackson said, we'll never forget. Always wanted to do it. I learned so much more. Granted, my knowledge on said battle was kind of limited to begin with, but learning is always fun. And being able to experience it there, it's a bit like when we go to Europe, the Ardennes and things like that. Learning about said thing in the place it happened, it's an experience, and everyone has to do it. It's so cool.
Yeah, my highlight would be seeing Little Round Top and positions that the 20th Maine took during the second day of the battle, just because I'm a big Joshua Chamberlain stan. He was an American hero, and being where he was with his men was just really cool to me. And that's also where he earned a Medal of Honor during Gettysburg. And, the famous story of him, a Confederate officer trying to shoot him in the face with a revolver, and he drew a sword and put it to the man's throat and accepted his surrender, was and seeing where that happened. Like, that pistol is still on display in Maine, because he kept it for the duration of the war, and he survived the war despite his best efforts. He was almost killed, I think, in Petersburg when he was given a battlefield promotion because they thought he was going to die, and he didn't die. And he's like, well, I guess I'm going to take this promotion now. Yeah, that was just really cool. Like that, and Pat knew, I'm like, hey, I know we're going to go to Little Round Top because it's a very important part of the battle, but please, like, I need to go there so bad. I need to see where Joshua Chamberlain was. So I've never been to Gettysburg, I live an hour and 15 minutes away from it. But yeah, man, what an awesome time.
Yeah, Little Round Top sticks out to me because, in Gettysburg, there's fields, there's some little rolling hills a lot where some of the engagement started, and Pickett's charge is across the big field. But Little Round Top for me was just so unique because the environment there is very different than everywhere else. It's these large glacial rocks, this hill, and talking about building the stone fortifications, and then Devil's Den as an area, just that whole landscape and the woods behind it. That was a lot of fun. And, we could spend days there, but that was the creme de la creme for me in seeing that. And again, walking around those historic sites with friends and somebody that's knowledgeable, where we're just casually walking down a hill. He's like, oh yeah, that's where this happened over here. It's like, damn, man, you would never know unless you had an individual like Pat there. So, Pat, I think we're signing you up for other tours. Listeners, he can be contacted at patbrown.com. He takes Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal. But, all jokes aside, I think 2 years from now, I wouldn't mind doing it again, to be honest.
Yeah.
And spending a little more time there, going to some of the lesser known spots, and learning more, unique things, and even spending time in the town, which we didn't get to do. So certainly the possibility of going back is there, and I'd love to do it.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and if you've never been there and you go there for the first time, and this was new to me, I did not know this either, but during the battle, there was significantly less trees there. It was almost like that area is all farmland, so most of the trees were cut down for farms. And now it's not really, obviously, that much of farmland anymore. So when you go there, there's a lot of trees. It does kind of suck because it blocks like the sight lines that the officers would have had, the men would have had during the battle. because you're like, like, how do they know what was happening? There's a bunch of freaking trees here. But then in the 1860s, those trees weren't there. But then the one cool thing is over by Cemetery Ridge, where Pickett's Charge was, there is a group of trees that are witness trees that were actually there, and they're fenced in, so you can't like go in and mess with them. But it's just neat knowing, yeah, these trees were here. I mean, obviously they can't see, but like they were witness to this, horrific battle 150 years ago.
Yeah. It also gives me a new appreciation for, we were out about 6 hours, like you say. My forehead was very red and burnt. They were wearing very thick wool uniforms in very similar heat. Like, you don't think about it when I think about it, but just the appreciation for that. It's like, these guys must have been cooking, especially like trying to climb Little Round Top. Like that hill in that heat with all your gear, your weapons, or pulling ammunition carts and cannons. It's like, sod that, I'm running away. Or getting shot doing so, because that's a task.
Well, I think it was explained to you while we were there. Wool is not really that. It's warm, but like in the heat and in the sun, you want wool covering on you. That's why they were at the time made uniforms out of it, because it's a breathable material. So you want to be covered. And as someone who's lived in the desert, yeah, you don't really want to go out in the desert or any time when it's really sunny and hot just with bare sleeves, because you're just going to get sunburned and all the sweat's going to evaporate off of you immediately and will not cool you down. But the wool will hold that moisture and evaporates more slowly, and it will cool you down more than I think a lot of people think it does. It's so warm, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lost an inch of my hairline due to the sun cooking my head.
Yeah, so that was a really great time. And after that, we skedaddled off to Camp Hill, which was less than an hour away. And it was a great way to break up the little trip up there.
All right, everybody. Well, I am here today with a good friend, Christian from Bases by Bill. Christian, how have you been?
Well, we've been great. It's exciting to see the show season underway, and we've had an opportunity to go to a few and see our customers face to face. So that's always exciting.
Besides being a great partner to the Plastic Posse, Bases by Bill has been a fantastic partner for my own show here in Salt Lake, the Rocky Mountain Expo. Even over and above that, they've also been a very generous sponsor of the Global 48 and 48 annual group build event that benefits Models for Heroes. So, Christian, I just really want to thank you for that effort in particular.
Yeah, we were delighted to help. This is our second year, and we're looking forward to future years. Anything we can do, these days to help people out that are in need, we're happy to do it in our own little contribution.
Well, it's really appreciated, and the U.S. Canadian leg of that, we were able to raise $10,000 to give to Malcolm and his charity, and I know that is going to help a lot of veterans and first responders using this amazing hobby that we share a passion for.
Yeah, it's a tremendous effort, and thank you to your group and everybody that made that possible, including the people that participated in the auction. We really thank you for that.
While we're talking about that, a couple of the items that you have donated that were auctioned off to winners is something that I'm really excited about. It's a new product line of carrier deck bases, and so I was wondering maybe if you could tell our listeners a little bit about what those are and what the intentions are behind them.
Yeah, as you know, right now the carrier decks are brought to you either in Baltic birch or in MDF, and they're 6 millimeters thick, and you can take them and finish them and add things to them. And we got to thinking about, well, is there a way to extend that product a little bit? And the answer is yes. As you know, Bill Wiedeward, the founder of the organization and the namesake, is an excellent woodworker. So what we've done is we've taken about a 3/4 thick cherry board, augured out or routed out the center of it so that it will accept the deck so that it's flush. And then the rest of the cherry hardwood is routed on the edge to give it a very nice finish. And then I think it's available, let's see here, I'm counting in 5 different stains. So we'll be providing those to the winners from the 48 and 48 auction. And then we'll be launching the product here shortly to everybody. So it'll be available both for the carrier decks as well as our relatively new airfield series. So we're pretty excited about that. The innovation came about because when we did the 1/144th scale single engine aircraft carrier decks, we saw that they were way too small to really handle on the show table. And so we added that cherry hardwood base to it to make it a little bit easier to handle or for judges to handle. And then we made some investments in equipment to allow us to make larger holders, the cherry holders. We needed to get some additional equipment to route all of that centerpiece out. So we're pretty excited about it, and we're hoping that our customers will be excited as well.
I'm sure they will. It's a really great way to display a model aircraft. Now, what scales do those come in?
Those come in 172 and 148th to start. We are looking at 132nd, but it turns into an awfully big piece of wood. I think the way to handle that is if you do need it for 132nd, you should just get in touch with us directly, and we can talk to you about what you need and what the price might be for that.
Also, those come in U.S. Navy and also Imperial Japanese Navy, correct?
Yes. And we are, I guess, happy to reveal on this program that we will have modern U.S. carrier decks probably within the next 30 to 45 days. And those will actually come with the 5-prong pad eyes that are used to chain the aircraft down, as well as texture on the decks. So we've been asked for modern stuff for quite some time. Obviously, we're excited about that, and we'll be keep an eye on our Facebook or other pages that we have for more information as that comes along.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's kind of review how people can take a look at these photos of these and order and everything. So let's get all your particulars out. Let's start with Facebook and website.
Yeah, we have a page called Bases by Bill. So just simply search in Facebook and you come there and see the various contact information. The real place to go is basesbybill.com. That's where we have all of the products listed. We have various news or blog posts there to help you. That's also a way to contact us. There's a form on every page to contact Bases by Bill if you have questions or suggestions or anything at all that you'd like to talk to us about. We're happy to respond to those.
Yeah, it's really easy to work with these guys. I mean, if you want something custom, they can accommodate so many different things. Anybody that's seen one of their products, seen one of their bases, you know the quality that they invest in making these bases that are, something you could be proud to put a model on. Go check that out. And man, exciting new products.
Yeah, and there are some additional things coming. The airfield bases that we offer right now are basically modern. As you know, a modern jet airfield, you can't have damage or things like that because it's FOD, right? But we're about to introduce aged concrete and then really distressed concrete. So if it's a more austere type of situation or maybe an abandoned aircraft, that'll be cracked with pieces. The other thing is our good friends over in the Soviet Union had some really interesting concrete airfield that were based on hexagons. And so we'll be offering those. There's two different sizes. They had one size used during the Second World War and then another size in the 50s. And then they also invented a thing called the PAG-14. And this was a precast, pre-stressed concrete slab that exposed part of the rebar on each edge to be able them to be welded together. And in fact, there's photos out there of these runways constructed from this PAG-14 still in work and in use. When we were in Afghanistan, we were running our C-17s over this in Kyrgyzstan, I think it was. And it's amazing stuff. So that'll give the Warsaw Pact modelers some additional things to display their aircraft on. And of course, all those bases will fit into the hardwood display. Finally, on the 1/144 side, we know that airliners are popular. So we're going to introduce kind of a custom size. You put in a size up to the maximum dimensions that we can put together for you, and we'll make you a modern concrete airfield for your airliners and your larger size 1/144 scale. So we've got a lot of products coming this summer. It's really a challenge to keep up right now because we're in the design phase, which frankly is where most of the work occurs. So, and then add to that all of the awards that we're doing. We were proud to be part of the inaugural Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo, and we're looking forward to the second annual Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo. And so we do major awards, gold, silver, bronze, and 1, 2, 3, all sorts of different styles. And if you attend a contest this year, you'll probably see something. We've supported the IPMS Nationals in the past as well. So it's another part of our business that we don't talk about a lot, but just thought I would bring it up for your listeners.
Yeah, it's fantastic quality too. I mean, whether it's the individual coins or medals or the really nice, kind of more beautiful, I guess, special awards, you've got a lot of tricks up your sleeve, and you're really, the custom touches you brought to our awards at the expo were really appreciated. Well, that's exciting news about all those new bases and all those new products. And then you do other products as well, too, right? You do the one-man army masks?
Yes, we have a relationship with One Man Army out of Belgium. Those are precision cut masks with a highly tuned specialized laser and materials that the founder, Sven Verlinde, has put together. We've been offering those since last August. They definitely provide an amazing finish. And what's interesting is that One Man Army is now moving into the 48th scale. So they've been primarily available for 32nd scale aircraft, a little bit of 35th scale armor, but the main focus has been aircraft. So now in April, we'll be able to bring to the United States Hurricane data stencils in 148th, Hurricane Mark I, and really exciting, Focke-Wulf FW190 data stencils, national markings, and fuselage numbers and things like that. I've seen the samples. It's amazing how small they are, but it looks like the real thing. Bill just finished old Edward BF-109 E4 and used the One Man Army mask for it, and it is a thing of beauty. So we're really excited to be able to continue to bring those products to our customers here in the U.S. And all of those mask sets include shipping. Shipping's included with those.
They're fantastic products. Like you said, the small detail that they're able to get is just tremendous. And there's nothing like painted markings. Especially those small little markings where you've got to have normally so much carrier film that it could be really a challenge to eliminate silvering on those, but being able to custom paint those really takes care of that. So awesome product there. Well, Christian, this is exciting. Lots of great stuff. One more time for the listeners out there, your website.
It's basesbybill.com. As we like to say, there's always something new at Bases by Bill.
Well, thanks for joining me today. We are excited to see the new products, and we will talk with you soon.
Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Before we went to the show, we stopped by our Verbo. We had a lot of guests over. Briefly want to talk about it because in terms of Verbos, I think it checks the box on most unique. So we had an old bank in a very interesting neighborhood with a great pizza shop. And what was really neat about it was there were 2 rooms, one of which Aaron had. And Jensen, describe the bedroom you had for our listeners.
It was interesting. It was a square with a bed in it. The bed was very comfy. I will give it that. Very comfortable bed. I imagine there are quite a lot of leisurely activities take place in it. There was no door. It was more of a cage because it was a vault, and there was a very interesting hole in the wall, which, if you pull a lever, gets very loud.
It's like an APU on a 737.
The problem is the hole led to the leisure area where everyone else was. So the room was pokey, but you're literally sleeping in there. That's all you need it for. The bed was big. It was very comfortable. Granted, I had no safety from the other guys because I didn't have a locking door, so anyone could grab me in the night, which is my biggest fear, apparently, coming to America, being grabbed. But yeah, it was the vault. It was a vault for an old bank. I mean, it had a door, just physically can't move it because it is a legitimate vault door with all the mechanism inside. It is impossible to move. But yeah, the room was actually really good. I think the Verbo itself was, I mean, we want to stay there again. It was great. Yeah. It had a pool table, dartboard, foosball table, the ping pong game, digital game. It had drum set, guitars, trombone. there was everything you could want. It was a very good venue.
The pong table was legendary.
Yeah.
It was like this like podium almost that had 4 sets of controls. You could play with 4 people. And they had like normal Pong, but then they also had like a sports mode where they had different types of sports, and they had a hockey mode where each person had 3 paddles. So basically like one player played as like your goalie and your defenseman, and then the other player played center and left and right wing. And I've never seen JB get so like intently like focused on a game. Like he was sweating, and
I was locked in.
He was so locked in. It was one of the most intense things I've ever played, and it's literally just a little pixel that moves back and forth and then like a couple lines. Like that was it. But we played so many games of that, and it was so much fun. I also love the other rooms. A lot of the ones on the main floor were literally just the cubicles from like the HR manager at the bank or whatever, and like there'd just be a bed in there, and it was a very eclectic
the room where you apply for a loan.
Yeah, exactly. And then Zach and I were on the 3rd floor in the attic where neither one of us could stand up. We literally like had to crouch over in the room. And then for whatever reason, Zach's bed was like, I swear, on like a plinth. So like his bed, like I swear his nose was touching the ceiling when he was sleeping.
Yeah. So it was like, I think it was a bunk bed originally, but because the ceiling is so low, there's no way you could put a bunk bed in there. So it's like the height of like a normal bed frame and then another half with a bed on, and then yours was just on the ground.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mine was just a mattress.
Yours was a box spring and a mattress.
That was most of our beds.
And they're both twins too. So like neither of us, like we both had our feet sticking off the end of these twin beds because we're both reasonably tall, you especially. So we couldn't stand up, and then we'd lay down and have like a foot of our leg off the end of the bed.
Luckily, we had a lot of booze, so you just get drunk, and then you wouldn't really care where you ended up. So we didn't.
And it was also, there's no like AC up there, so there was this like a
swamp cooler.
Yeah, there was a little movable AC unit, which was not fully ducted into the window. I realized the second day. Like the ducting was like just wrapped with duct tape, which was not at all solid. So it was falling off. So it was simultaneously incredibly humid and hot and also freezing cold.
Yeah, we also had a very nice mural of just a singular, or was it a singular or a pile of candy corn?
I believe it was a pile of candy corn.
A pile of candy corn. Nice little mural. Don't know what that theming is, but it was great. In all seriousness, it was an awesome place to stay. Had room for all of us. A lot of places to put down models. Had a really nice bar, and I think the Verba owner pretty like kept it stocked with different liquors and mixers and cups and stuff. And on the listing, he apparently was just like take what you need, just replenish it. On our system, and yeah, I will definitely be staying there.
And if you leave leftovers, they will be eaten.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was great. We had 14 of us there, and then we had a bunch of others stop by, and it was just a great place to host, and we'll definitely do it again. So that was a lot of fun. After we connected there, we went to the show, and we'll kind of wrap this segment up about the show itself. It was a lot of fun. I give AMPS a lot of credit. The venue was at Penn Hotel in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Really nice venue. Again, shout out to AMPS because the way these shows survive is that they go to tier 2, cities, tier 3 cities. And this is one of them where it's a tier 2, tier 3 city, but the venue is perfect for scale modelers. Big open area, great lighting. Vendor room was really nice. A lot of great vendors, Squadron, Angel from Microworld Games. You had Jeff there, a bunch of Taesung. Like, again, the list goes on and on and on, and just really nice open area. I would say one recommendation I have, I understand why they did it, but they did pack models pretty close together starting off. I actually think they should spread them out because at the end of the show, you had probably 2/3 of the space models crammed together. And then there was a third of the tables that were just literally completely empty. So my recommendation is like, hey, spread them out and then fill in the holes as the days go on, because what happened was there were clusters of models, which it was kind of hard to get groups of people to get close to them because you want to see stuff and people congregated around where the models were. So next time I would just recommend spreading them out. That's what I would do.
I thought parking at the venue was really good. There was never a struggle to park up.
Yeah, parking was easy. The flow was good. You walk in the main lobby, you had, your ramrod and places to check in your models to the left, raffle to the right, big open venue where the show models were ahead of the vendor table, which I thought was really great. Kind of forced people to go through and see it. One opportunity I think AMPS does have is that when the models were judged, there's two bottlenecks at AMPS now. There's the bottleneck of judging models, and then there was the bottleneck of photographing models. And unfortunately, photographing the models was a lot slower than judging. And it was unfortunate because on Saturday, there were models that were entered on Friday that got, I think, Jackson, your stuff was put out Saturday midday.
It was put out like the first time I saw some of my models on the table, people were already packing their models up.
Yeah.
Which, I like being able to show people work. I want there to be more models on the table for people to look at. So it definitely sucked from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's a big opportunity for AMPS. And hey, look, I appreciate that they wanted to get pro photos done of everything, but unfortunately, I think that impacted the show experience for a lot of people. Because like you said, Jackson, there were moments where I saw carts taking models out, but then also the same cart taking models back to judge the best ofs. And, some of these models had 5 minutes in front of the public, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, especially too, AMPS Nats is a huge show for like club tokens and awards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, if your models aren't out on the table, then clubs can't appreciate them and give you the cool swag. So I don't particularly care about that, but it is definitely room for improvement. One thing that they did this year, they might have done it last year. I wasn't there, as TJ well knows. It was a first for me. So I missed the pre-registration deadline by I literally went on to do it either the next day or later that day, and I missed it by a little bit. So I had to register them at the show. Their online registration system is phenomenal. It was so easy.
Yeah.
I literally registered my models in maybe 10 minutes tops. It was set up very, very similar to how SMC has theirs, because I've registered the day of there as well, where essentially you literally put, the scale, the title, the kit manufacturer. If you want to put in your build notes, you can in that box. I did all that beforehand. I think it's a bit of advice for people that are going to register the day of. Type up all your build notes in advance. I have a master Word document where I have all of the modifications and stuff I made to the kit, all organized by the model, and then I literally just copy and paste that into a Word document, print it, and then bring it with me, and then just attach that to the registration sheet. It's way easier, but if you want to type your build notes on the actual registration sheet, you can. It's still in the same spot, super easy. And then literally registered, went over to the registration desk, said, hey, I registered my models, gave them whatever the price of admission was. They printed out a new name tag for me, and I was good to go. It was leaps and bounds over what other shows are doing with, the handwritten registration form. So I just wanted to give a huge kudos to that. I think it's a huge step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see if they, improve it even more, or even if they just keep using that system going forward.
Yeah, 100%. We talk about opportunities with AMPS around the bottlenecks, but they did a lot of stuff right. I mean, they nailed 9 out of 10 things, I think. And one of them certainly being the pre-registration. I thought it was incredibly easy and intuitive online, and in person, like you said, it was very easy, and major shout out to them. It's always a struggle to change the way things are done, especially when it's handwriting and traditional methods of communication, and going online is a big win for them, and really grateful for that. And I think it makes things easier in terms of cataloging results as well. And they were really fast with the results. We're talking within 24 hours, I think, of the show ending. They had the results online, all the medal winners, all the specials. And this is where the photographs come into play. They had photographs of all the special award winners as well. Again, understanding the bottleneck, maybe next time just take those pictures on the floor to make things easier. But overall, again, nailing 9 out of 10 and knowing what that 10th one is to improve for next year. I'm sure they'll get it right. And I was talking to Steve Tooch. He's part of the leadership team there. Insanity brother, really nice guy. He was even commenting on it of the day of the show. And he made some comments yeah, we could, hey, we got to fix this, blah, blah, blah. So it's on their radar. Major shout out to them. yeah, overall fun. And the awards ceremony too, maybe we can, end there. And I want to save some of this discussion for Scott too, because it was his first time there. But the awards ceremony was a lot of fun. I think that's the difference in a lot of shows. And then maybe the culture around the show is really exemplified during the awards ceremony, where some are almost stuffy, 3-hour long marathons of talking about which variant of the Spitfire won a bronze and whether it was green, yellow, or purple. But at AMPS, I think there's a little bit more of a character there. And we certainly yelled and hollered at people that we know and love and gave a lot of to a few of them. But that was fun too. And it went pretty quick. There's a lot of, what's nice about AMPS is each modeler is recognized. They come up, they shake their hand, they get their award. And, Jensen even got to go up there. So it was good.
Yeah.
Also,
it was nice to pick up some silverware.
I want to give a huge shout out to Neil Stokes and Brian Eberly too. They were both running the registration table when I got there, and super friendly, super helpful, helped me navigate the new system. They just are doing the Lord's work. Really great guys, and I was very impressed with the show that they helped put on, as well as the rest of the AMPS team. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to a lot of them. Some of them I know personally, but yeah, they all did a great job, and I had a blast.
Yeah, there's some very thankless jobs that are going on during the show, and there was a lot of them there. And again, like you said, I just echo what you say, Jackson. A lot of great work done behind the scenes that we don't see. So listeners, if you're interested in AMPS, it is not in Camp Hill next year. It is actually in where it was 2 years ago in South Bend, Indiana. That should be a lot of fun. It is going to be held on April. I just saw the post from Brian Eberly. I was going to scroll down and see it. It is going to be held on April 16th to 18th, 2026 at the Century Center, which is downtown South Bend at 120 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It's it's actually a beautiful venue. It's freaking awesome. In terms of show venues, it's one of the best I've been to. Beautiful, big, open lit, tons of space, really nice for the AMPS crew to be there. What's also good is there is a hotel right across the street that you can stay there, or I'll give the spoiler alert for some of our listeners. If you have a group, highly recommend looking at Airbnbs. South Bend is home to the University of Notre Dame. It is off football season, so there are plenty of Airbnbs looking to get occupancy during a downtime, and you can get some really good deals. So I've already booked ours. It's the same one we stayed at 2 years ago. Can't wait to do it again. Look forward to seeing other people there too. So, and the show theme is Vietnam. Full definition will be coming soon from their chief judge, but essentially anything, anywhere in Indochina, here's the kicker, from 1899 to present. So a very big swath of time. So it's not necessarily the Vietnam War, it's Vietnam. I might do the Pink Panther, that mythical Panther tank that they say made it to Vietnam. Also, I'm going to go off on a tangent because I have the mic. I might do the SDKF said 251 that was in Vietnam. There's a couple photographs of them being used with artillery pieces modified on top of them. So that's a super unique subject well from Vietnam. That is AMPS 2026, which we're all looking forward to already. Now let's go over to a quick recap. I thought the topic last episode was really good. TJ to thank for that. It was around Pharaoh builds. We have a few that we'd like to read off. I'll take the first one and then pass it off for the second. I'll volunteer Jensen and then TJ as well, since I see both of them unmuted. But I thought this was a super unique topic. Really enjoyed seeing all of our listeners contribute to it on the Facebook page. I'm not going to lie. It's also pretty cool to see like Ken Childress call out his one little vignette that I have in my cabinet as one of his Pharaoh builds. I love it. And it's a great privilege to have that. And Ken, just giving you a shout out. Thank you again. And it's in good hands. It's in a place of honor and very honored to have it. But with that, let's go over and read out just a couple folks that contributed this online and wrote in. Larry Donovan, good morning, Posse. And I hope you're enjoying the AMPS National Show. Hopefully this event makes its way close to the middle of the country. Hey, South Bend next year, go for it. But around the Pharaoh builds, he was, for him, it brings him to a point of my missive, he says. There's a great discussion around the last episode of Pharaoh builds. How about cathedral build? As many might know, the great cathedrals, temples, pyramids took years to build. Indeed, some took generations. Sagrada Familia comes to mind, of families to work on them. Maybe they were working on part of the etched piece that pinged into the void. Maybe us modelers who have a cathedral build. one they have been working on for months, if not years. Jackson, your porcupine comes to mind, like someone I know, like me, he says, who has been working on the 48 scale Defiant since the middle of lockdown and the COVID pandemic. Like the middle-aged craftsman working gradually to raise the great edifice of our hopes and dreams, it could also be that shelf monarch brought down from the stash to work on a couple days or weeks during the year. Just a thought it would be an interesting topic. Keep up the great work. I thoroughly appreciate the podcast. I'm okay going on a quick tangent with this. I think this is a great topic. I know Jackson's shaking his head, and maybe we'll just go quickly around the room for one of our cathedral builds quotes. And Jackson, I think you have the penultimate one, so we'll just start off with you, and then we'll go down from there.
Yeah, so I think the main one that comes to mind is definitely the porcupine. It's Korean War, Marine Corps, Sherman. Not a lot of info on it online, just a couple photos, and that's about it. Knew I had to build it. I started it right after IPMS Nationals in 2022 and have been working on it ever since. Full interior using the Ryefield kit. I'm lighting it. I've had to 3D model all of the radios and interesting little features on that vehicle. I've gone to the National Archives, I think 3 or 4 times to find more info, more photos. So that has been an awesome build, but is definitely a cathedral. And then the other one that I have not spent a lot of time on is the Trumpeter 1/200 Titanic. I actually built my current model bench to be 6 feet long, specifically for that kit. Started it during COVID in 2020 and have been working on it ever since. Longer than it took the actual Titanic to be built, mind you. But I've dumped, I want to say, upwards of $1,000 on aftermarket books, lighting, everything. I'm also like designing all the interiors in CAD and 3D printing them. That is, I kind of see that more as like my cathedral build, because like that's like the mantelpiece build. Like when I'm done with that, when I have a house of my own, that's going to be sitting above the fireplace, hopefully in a nice Bases by Bill case that they do for it. That is probably like my magnum opus, just because it's massive. It's got literally every piece of aftermarket that you can buy. The Titanic's always kind of been my like non-armor, like niche interest. Like I know everything there is to know about the Titanic and her sister ships and everything. So I would say those two are my big cathedral builds. We'll see when they end up getting done.
Zach, what about you?
So before I go into mine, I want to make a slight tangent to the porcupine. So he sort of like really started this project, as he said, on the way home from the Omaha IPMS Nats. We drove there together, the 16-hour trip from my house in Tennessee to Omaha. So we're, I think, like 4 or 5 hours away from my house. And we've been talking about like the porcupines for like 2 hours at this point. And we look down at his dashboard and see that we are completely out of gas on this random mountain road in the middle of, I think it was like West Virginia or something like that.
Yeah.
It was somewhere in there. And we're like, oh, we probably should get gas.
Yeah,
so we
have
to
like 3 in the morning.
It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. So we had to pull into like the sketchiest, like we're going to get shot out here gas station in the world to get gas because we got distracted by the porcupine for 2 hours.
Story of my life, really.
True. Very true. So for those who know me, you know that every model I ever build is a cathedral build. I would say like the most pertinent example right now would be the BMP T-34 that I just finished recently, which I started a year and a half ago for last year's AMPS Nationals as part of a Wilder group build Soviet Russian what if thing that Stephen Reed put together after Adam dropped his I forget the name of the book. I always forget it. I think it's like Layering or something like that, which has a lot of Russian subjects in it. And along with that, AK Interactive also dropped like a resin turret that he designed. So a year and a half later, I've almost kind of finished it. It was finished enough to bring to the show. I still have high hopes of putting it on a base to like sort of contextualize it, because it's like a what if the Russians got involved in Operation Downfall in 1946. I have not started what will truly be like a cathedral build and my hopeful magnum opus, which is a 1/16 Kleiner Panzerbefehlswagen. Because I'm a big fan of the Panzer I, and I like weird like communications vehicles, which is why the Porcupine project Jackson is working on for about 26 years now is really interesting to me as well. But for that, like, it requires me to scratch build everything above the sponsons in this vehicle at 1/16 scale, doing my best David Parker impression, which I have yet to commit to, because I know it's going to be like, that's probably going to take me 10 years, especially knowing how I build. That will very genuinely probably take me 10 years to complete. Another one that's in progress. Again, like I said, it's all of my models. All of my models take me years to finish. But I'm working on a prototype is the wrong word, a limited production run Baldwin did of an M32 tank recovery vehicle with E9 suspension based on an A1 hull, which I started last September or October, and so far have almost completed half of the CAD that I need to do to then build the interior of this vehicle. I have not even sort of started on the exterior, so again, that's probably going to be another 2 or 3 years. I just build really slow because I'm stupid and like, I need to really detail this one bolt. This is a critical thing that my life cannot go on without unless I detail this one tiny thing.
I need to add cast texture to the underside of the hull.
If the inside of this hull is not textured, I don't think I can go on.
You also drop it like 5 times too, and spill liquid cement all over it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I have to restart everything 6 times.
This is why lions eat their young. All right, over to Jensen. What's your cathedral build?
Easy for me. I'm not going to drone on as much as Zach did. So for me, it's the Hong Kong Models Dornier 335. It's really simple. Could start it relatively soon. I just need to get about 110, 120 quid's worth of aftermarket for it, because it's a humongous aircraft, and HK models do tend to need the aftermarket because they're a bit weak in some places. So going to want those master metal gun barrels, antennas, resin wheels, mask set, the 3D decals for the instrument panels. I'm going to obviously paint the markings on. It's silly not to, really, but I'm not going to bother having the engines open and all that stuff. I think it's just such a nice aircraft and nice design. I mean, we all saw it in person at Udvar on the last day, and we all know just how big of an aircraft that is. So that's going to be a really cool painting experiment to look really weathered, even though very late war. Don't know how weathered they really would have gotten. But yeah, it's going to be a really good project. It's just finding where to put it afterwards. I'm hoping, because I'm not sure, I've not taken the kit to bits. I've noticed HK with their bombers, like the B-25, B-17, and the Lancaster, they do it so even after it's completely finished, the wings can slide off and be removable. Don't know if that's the case with the 335. It would be amazing if it was. We shall see. But for me, that's my cathedral build.
Awesome. TJ, take us home.
Actually, I think when Jackson was talking, I went to go get it so I can show everyone here on the call. This is my cathedral build. Gigantic box right here, which is a 1/72nd scale Millennium Falcon from Fine Molds. I have started this kit. I started it when I got it like 10 years ago. And I quickly decided I was not good enough to build this kit, which I don't believe in now. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think people should not build things they don't think they're good enough. I think you should. That's how you get better. So yeah, this is probably we've had this conversation before. I think I've been working on the 1/44th scale version longer, but I've done more work on this. I think I've done all the detailing on the upper hull, which is a lot because it's just piece after piece after piece. There's a lot of pieces in this kit. It's huge, as you can see from the box. So yeah, that's my cathedral build. I will finish this one day. This is my dream because I freaking love this model and I love this ship because I love Star Wars. So yeah, I don't think it's as good as the Bandai one, but I think it's pretty freaking good. So yeah, I will finish this one day. I will not go to my grave with this unfinished.
Nice. And I'll be quick. I want to do the Clairvaux graveyard scene. I have the Sherman, I have the Stug, and yeah, it's on the list for a cathedral build. These are, cathedral, magnum opus. It's very interchangeable. I think cathedral just is the time it takes. Yeah, I think of Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. That's just always under construction. Yeah, it's
huge.
Huge. Thank you so much for that topic. That was a really great tangent. So thanks again, Larry. Really appreciate it. We have 2 more. We'd just like to give a quick shout out to. I'll turn it over to Jensen to go over Peters, and then TJ will pick up Williams.
Of course. So Peter Fidlotsky. So he says his Furrow build. I don't have a lot of completed builds that I'm proud of, but these are probably my 3 favorite. And in all fairness, we've all seen them. They are absolute stunners. So firstly, he says his Tamiya F4B. It's probably the best work he's done so far, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. It's a stunning, and it's a really nice model. Not a huge fan of the Phantom, but that is a very nice model. So completely understand why he's chosen that one. He said he's Edward Tempest. He says it's not that good, but it's currently hanging out with his good friends in the US, and I think that's pretty cool. He's talking nonsense. It's outstanding. It is a really, really nice. So the fact he says it's not that good, he's clearly wrong. And then finally, he says his Tamiya F14D was the first model he fully painted with an airbrush. Plus, it's a Tomcat, and Tomcats are life. The fact that that's his first model he did with an airbrush is kind of crazy, because that is also like an incredibly good build. But yeah, they're Peter's 3 builds, and they are 3 very amazing picks.
Right. And William Midair, who, if anyone knows who he is, he scratch builds, I think, like 1/44 scale World War I stuff. Amazing. They're so cool. He said that the latest episode had him thinking of his Pharaoh builds, and he had to be ruthless and leave out his DH2. And but this is what made the cut. His scratch build FE2B. He said this one will always be my favorite. It taught me everything about building and rigging biplanes in 1/44 scale. Again, which is amazing. 2 is the Machi M5 seaplane from V1 Models. Unlike a lot of people here, I don't know anybody out in the real world who shares my interest in scale modeling. I'd never even met another model until a couple years ago when I had the chance to catch up with a fellow 1/44 scale builder named Shogo when he visited from Japan. He generously gifted this 3D filament printed kit when we met, and so extra thank you to him. I put a lot of time in it and did the best job that I could. And his Janine Taub scratch build, this was the most difficult project I'd ever made, and in truth, I started building it just to see if I would fail. It taught me a lot about personal perseverance as the model inched forward over the 14 months it took to make. From the spoked wheels to the buckles and the safety harness, I think it's the nicest and most complete model I've ever made. I hope that I can take it with me to my tomb so one day people will discover it and say, you missed the fuel drainage pipe from the gravity tank. That's pretty good.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, William, for the input. Those are all great builds. And like TJ said, keep up the great scratch building work. We love your stuff. There's 2 shows I'd like to highlight, one of which is the San Diego Model Show in El Cajon, California. It's on June 7th. Check out details on their webpage or Facebook page. And then I'd also like to call out Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo. That is in Salt Lake City on June 20th and 21st. Our dearly beloved leader, Scott, is helping lead that with a great group of individuals. I'm going to be there. I think a bunch of other listeners are going to be there. So please come. We have a couple special gifts to hand out to people, and it should be a great time. Cannot wait for that show. And then, so, listeners, we're going to dive into one more little topic. I think this one is a really interesting one. It's certainly going to raise some eyebrows. It's always a sensitive topic, which let's be honest, it shouldn't be. We shouldn't make any excuses that competition is a part of the hobby. And for those that take it seriously, there's nothing wrong with that. Just like if people want to do display only, we encourage you. But this discussion is around competition. And specifically, a competition is only as good as its least experienced judge. And that's a little bit to process, but we're going to go around the room and talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts because, for some of us, we take competition, seriously. If you're going to build a model, you want to build it the best you can in that regard. Sure. I love slammer builds. Display only shows like the one in Seattle are super important and I love them and I'll participate in them. But then conversely, I also love a good competition where it brings out the best scale modelers, not only here in America, but across the world. And that's what we want to talk about, where the onus of the competition is on those judges, and the least experienced one will only make the competition as good as it can be. Some shows are great at it with either training judges or pulling in some of the best modelers in the world to be a judge. And then other ones that take anyone off the street they can and a warm body to go in and look at work that they truly don't understand. And I've experienced both spectrums. And I think what I'd love to do is just talk about them today. I'll open up the floor to maybe kick this off to anyone who wants to start this wonderful discussion. But yeah, this is what we're going to do.
I'll go because why not? Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase, the chain's only as strong as the weakest link. That is this, and you can take it however you want. I'm sure everyone else here kind of feels the same way too. Like, you want to call me a competition builder, fine. That's fine. I'm not insulted by that. I build things because I like. If I go to a competition, I want to win. Not because I'm like hyper competitive, but because I'm not really, but I want I want to be recognized for the hard work that I do, right? And the effort I put into making the best thing that I can make. So, when people that don't understand that and don't fully process what you're doing don't treat you as fairly as someone else that maybe they are closer on their level is annoying. And I know that sounds terrible. That makes me sound like a conceited jerk, and that's fine. But I honestly believe that is what happens. And it's not just to me. It's happened to other people too, that if you get someone that, like JB said, doesn't fully understand what you're doing, how can they properly judge that? And again, I know that sounds conceited as hell, but think about it as far as like movie reviewers or music reviewers or any kind of reviewer, right? Anyone can review. Anyone can watch a movie, can listen to an album and give an opinion on it, and that's fine. However, do those opinions get published in the newspaper? Not really. A music critic should be at least trained in music theory, criticism in general, right? Like I can listen to an album and be like, man, this album slaps, and I just think it's great. But a critic can actually break that down and be like, okay, well, this is why I don't agree with you, or this is why I do agree with you. And then they can give you a list of reasons why, and you may not agree with it, and that's fine. But if that point kind of makes sense, I hope. I'm not saying that like every model competition has to have professional critics, wouldn't hurt. But I know that is an untenable position for any modeling society or group. I understand that, and I'm willing to play within the bounds. So it's not like, yeah, because I don't agree, I'm not going to participate, because I think that's kind of silly to a degree, at least. Like, I'm going to support the clubs and the events that I like, even if I don't think that they do the 100% best job when it comes to judging work. But I like this society, like AMPS in general. I think there's issues with judging at AMPS. I think it's better than most other modeling shows in the United States about how they judge, but there's also a lot of inconsistencies you see through various judging teams, and that's when you have multiple teams, you can't help that, and I fully understand that, and it's not really anyone's fault. They do the best job that they can, and I think they do a great job. But yeah, hopefully some of that makes sense. It doesn't maybe sound like too big of a...
No, I have my own personal critique, but it's more of an ending note to some experienced issues. But yeah, we can get into that towards the end of the discussion.
Yeah, so for this discussion, like you said, TJ, I think it's really important to recognize there are a lot of groups out there doing a good job of training judges. I think at the heart of this, it's how are you preparing judges to essentially evaluate the competition. I give a lot of credit to AMPS. They do a lot of things well. They do courses. They have a rubric. They're very structured. Like that, judging's never perfect. We're going to acknowledge that. And I think, TJ, you hinted that as well. People are people. People have biases, unconscious biases, known biases that they love to just spout. Well, I've never been that weather. Let's not say that. But what I think AMPS does is we call out organizations that do it, try to do it well. That's one of them. I look at a group in Texas that hosted Model Fiesta. They had a rubric. They had a judging sheet. They had pre-training. Those things do matter. Those things do help. Those things really bring out the best in terms of judging principles. And I think should be rewarded and recognized. Now, that said, I've been to the other side of the coin, and feel free to chime in. I've been to international shows where I went to the judges meeting and I've watched the judging, and I'm like, I have no idea what criteria they're using. Like they're just winging it. And same goes for some domestic shows where they hold a 10-minute judging session before a national competition, and then all of a sudden you're trained to judge national models. And that's unfortunate. I mean, there are individuals that spend years on these things. And then to have someone, all it takes is one team. And to be fair, one individual to influence the outcome of a show. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've witnessed it. And it's unfortunate. And those are the moments that I don't know if we'll ever solve, but we can do the best to, prepare the teams to not have those happen. What, John, what are you talking about? You're talking like really vaguely. No, I'm not. I mean, this happens in every show. When you call yourselves the Olympics of modeling, and then you don't have Olympic level athletes part of that judging, that judging core, or even, let's say, experienced coaches for that matter. When you look at the Olympics and people judging and scoring things, they're not necessarily Olympic athletes, but they understand what they're looking at. And I think that's the problem we have here in some competitions, is where those individuals looking at the work don't understand what the work is. One example is, if you've only built and painted models a certain way, wash, dry brush, and you're not interested in those newfangled techniques, how are you qualified to evaluate a piece that uses those newfangled techniques? That's just one example. Curious if anybody else has thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. When you look at what's regarded as like the top modelers in the hobby, when you look at people like, Uncle Night Shift or Spud or any of those guys, if you just look at a photo of their finished builds and you look at the weathering and just basically everything after a base coat, if a model's done well, you can't really decipher the different layers, right? It should look congruent and everything plays together. And it's sometimes hard to look out and say, oh, well, he did chipping there and then he did a enamel effect over it. Like it's hard to tell. And I think when you run into cases like that, unless you do have like a step-by-step, like both Spud and Night Shift do, you don't really know how much work goes into creating that finish, right? And so again, if you have a judge who typically when he builds models, he does a pin wash and then maybe just leaves it at that, which is totally fine. But if he's looking at a piece where you had, say, 20 different layers of effects, right? You're not looking at each one of those layers as another thing the modeler did. You're just looking at the finished product. And if you're only doing washes on your models, you're just going to say, oh, well, there's no tide marks on the wash. It was cleaned up well. His base coat's interesting, but I don't know how he did it. So like, it doesn't reward those extra steps. And I think that's kind of the crux of a lot of the issue is with building. It's very like you can clearly see, okay, even with paint over it, I can see that the modeler replaced this plastic part with something with more detail, or they built the tracks perfectly straight. The hole and lower hole are, aligned perfectly. Like that's all very evident. But unless you have a step-by-step of the painting process and weathering process, you don't know how much the modeler put into that part. And again, the judges who, don't use those techniques or don't like those techniques, they're not going to spend the time to actually look at the scope of effort of everything that came after building. And I think that's kind of just one of the issues with judging scale models is it's the amount of work put into them, especially after just the build, it's a huge gradient of different amount of steps. Like a model I build might only have 5 different layers, but a model JB built might have 20. Like it's a huge scale, and it's really up to the modeler to decide how much work he wants to put into paint. And it's just entirely subjective because of that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of the crux of the issue is, judge, you can have a rubric and, identify each individual component of a model start to finish, but there's never going to be a rubric good enough to account for, okay, well, what did the modeler do that's beyond just putting in a pin wash, right? So I don't know. I don't really have a solution or any further commentary, but I mean, that's kind of what I've noticed is if you will use AMPS for an example, you got 2 modelers, they're both in advance. One modeler did a pin wash and the other modeler did a pin wash and 20 layering techniques. They're going to be judged to the same rubric. Those extra points those extra steps are not going to directly correlate to a better score or anything. And if anything, I think I brought this up when we were talking about it after the show, the more, painting techniques you do, the more chance you have of getting points deducted, right? Because a perfectly applied oil modulation all over your base coat, it's not going to net you any extra points. You might get full scope of difficulty points, but that's entirely subjective and up to the judges. But if you mess that up, say you have a spot where you didn't fully blend it, that will be used to deduct points from your model. Whereas if you just do a pin wash and you clean it up perfectly, even if you didn't do anything after that, you're still going to get perfect score for weathering. Yeah, I think honestly, just breaking down, I think the rubric that AMPS uses should be the golden standard for judging. It takes a lot of the subjectivity out of judging. It's kind of more formulated, and the judges are kind of, I don't want to say corralled, but kind of forced to break down the model into subcomponents. I think that's great, and that's my preferred way of judging. But I think they just need to expand more for okay, what did the modeler do beyond the bare minimum? And again, bare minimum is subjective, but find a way to force judges to take a look at what they did post building. You know, how much difficulty, how much time did they put into making this finish look the way that it does?
I think that's a good point. And it's a difficult thing because like how far do you expand that rubric? Because like it's almost an infinite length that you could bring that to. So there has to be like a balance between here's every single thing you could ever do in a model, and here's how it's going to be judged on this sheet, which is like now 5 pages. But it's also like I think that one of the big issues with that rubric is I don't know this for sure. I'm assuming that's pretty much the same one that they made like day one of AMPS. I would assume it's not been updated a ton. So the rubric is, stuck in, we'll say, the 80s or 90s. Modeling has evolved well past that now. So like a lot of those things that would have been fine when, like the height of modeling was like the Berlin style, a pin wash and a dry brush, you're done. But now there is so much more that can be done to a model, and that is consistently and widely used on different models by so many different people that it's kind of grown past the quantifiers that you get on that little sheet at an AMPS. And I love judging AMPS shows. I've done it. I'm sad I didn't get to do it this time because you all never told me you were going to go judge. I'm a little mad about that. But I love judging at AMPS because it feels more personal to each piece, and you really get to like take a nice look at all of these models that come across your judging table. And it just feels, like you were saying, it's a more holistic way of like looking at a model and of judging. It just needs to sort of be updated to the times that we're in now, because it's not 1995, it's 2025. And there's a lot more to be done to a model, and a lot more that can be judged, and that should be judged, and that should be rewarded, like you were saying. I think the other issue is no matter how, like I said, you could expand this rubric out to be 25 pages to encompass literally anything that could be done to a model, thinking, well, now there's no room for subjectivity. I don't think there is any way to judge something like a model or many other things, but like a model specifically without subjectivity. And there's no way to fully remove that. And that could be contentious, but I don't think there's a way to fully remove an amount of subjectivity from what we do.
And see, I have no problem with that. I would rather have judges be able to judge subjectively, because that's what we do, right?
I agree.
I've said this more than probably on this podcast too. I'm not a big fan of rubrics and assigning numbers to things, because in my experience, it's been arbitrary half the time, right? And I'll use AMPS as an example. I've had a model, it wasn't this year, but in past years, where I didn't score anything on degree of difficulty. And it was a TACOM Whippet. If there's anyone that's built that kit, is not the easiest kit to build. Just look at the shape of the thing, right? Like, okay, but then I've also entered a Whippet another year and got full points on degree of difficulty. How? I've literally built the same model more than once. How is it more difficult? This version is more difficult than the one I did before. Obviously, there's some subjectivity in play. Even though they try to act like there's not supposed to be any, there clearly is. But just don't assign numbers to it. I've judged purely subjectively. I've done it with JB. We did it at Three Rivers. We've done it at SMC. We even kind of did it at PAXCon. They kind of have a rubric, but when I was judging figures, me and my team were like, yeah, this looks like a gold. There's no like, oh, well, we didn't have a checklist of like, this is what we like give points to. We looked at it and we're like, all right, that's a gold. Cool. Let's move on. That's a silver. Cool. Let's move on. Like, if you know what you're looking at, you don't need numbers to tell you something, right? And like, that's the way we do it at SMC. That's the way we did it at Three Rivers. Me and Aaron and JB could look at a model and be like, yep, that's a gold. Because the three of us know what the looking at, right? Like, not to toot our own horns, but we're pretty good modelers. So I know what a good model looks like, and I know what it takes to make a good model. But when you have a bunch of judges that don't necessarily have that same experience, not even knowledge, but just experience, it's hard for them to know what they're doing through no fault of their own. I'm not saying it's malicious or they're like ignorant or stupid or anything. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times it's not necessarily your fault. If, like Jamie was saying, if you do things one way your whole life and you're looking at the way someone else does it and they're not the same thing, it is difficult to understand that. Like, I get that. Like, I've experienced that in life too, outside of modeling, and that's not really anyone's fault.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And honestly, assigning points to it does kind of cause the other thing I wanted to bring up, which is something that I've noticed at a few of the AMPS shows, and not to dog on AMPS, it's just recent in my memory. When you have a flaw in a model, I've noticed there's not clear, and maybe there is, but people just don't know about it, but there's not clear direction on, so you've got a team of 4 judges and you've got this, 30-point score to make up and detract from. If you find a flaw, are all 4 of the judges, if they all see the flaw, should they all deduct points? Because that then kind of compounds, it can take a model from a gold to a silver for a single issue. I think the intent is that, one person will, like, each judge will look for flaws, and, if they find something, they'll write it down, but no one else will. So then you're only deducted, half a point or a point for that flaw versus 4, or I guess 3 with the drop score. So no, I get the subjectivity, and I think that kind of just goes back to the whole tagline of this discussion, and just that you can't really judge subjectively like that at like a gold, silver, bronze show if you don't know what you're looking at. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, having handpicked like top class modelers at SMC, like, yeah, that's ideal. That is, Olympic athletes judging the Olympics, like that works. But when you have, just, hey, we need a judging team, or even, hey, here's our local club, we're going to handle the judging, you don't really have that level of, handpicking who's qualified, air quotes, to make those calls. And that's why I think the point system is kind of there, because it's a medium between having entirely inexperienced subjectivity versus handcrafted, like, or handpicked, top judges.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and you're not wrong. Could they do that? Oh, absolutely. I mean, anyone could. If there's a will, there's a way. Should they? I don't know. I'm not in charge of AMPS, so I don't care. And again, not to single out AMPS, but like you said, this is our most recent experience. Like, do I think it'd be cool if they had handpicked judges that judged all the stuff? Absolutely. You'd have more consistent results, I think. You wouldn't see as much, this person had an issue similar to this person on their model, but this person had points deducted, but this person didn't, or this person had more points deducted than this person, even though it's the same thing. That probably wouldn't happen as much, at least. But that's up to them. I mean, I participate in the system, even if I have quibbles with it, and that's okay. I mean, I think it's a good system. I don't hate it, obviously. I mean, we have an AMPS chapter. I'm the freaking president. Like, I enjoy the show. I love going there. I like putting my models in the show and trying to earn medals, so they don't have to change. I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, and when I think about shows, pulling back from gold, silver, bronze, the biggest opportunities are with 1, 2, 3. That's where subjectivity runs supreme. I mean, when you're judging a category, you talk about not only judges, but judging teams being of different quality, caliber, opinion, bias. Like, there is a lot of things that don't make sense in some competitions that are 1, 2, 3. I mean, I've been a part of, we've all gone to shows where, one team, I'll just, probably has their stuff together where others don't. And it's again, teams evaluating, and that's where it's even compounded too, is you have to pick 3. You pick 3 based on, well, yeah, they did this well. It gets back to Jackson's comments where individuals don't understand how much work went into the specific finish. And I don't know. I don't like that very much, to be honest. I like the gold, silver, bronze better. I think judging in competitions is, like we've talked about, innately, it's so subjective. And that system just exemplifies everything that's, I'll just say, bad about competition. It's just so hard. And there's no perfect way to do it.
Yeah. One of the things about 1, 2, 3, that's another issue is, I mean, think about when we're at a model show not judging, and you go to the table of models, I'm sure everyone on this call and everyone listening can probably relate. If you look at like, a category, you'll see like a piece that jumps out at you immediately. And normally it's because of the subject. You're like, oh, that's a cool tank. Like I've never seen that one built before. And that one like sticks to the front of your mind. And like, that's the highlight of that category. Judging's no different. It's not until like once you do that initial look at the category, oh, there's a really obscure subject or, a really difficult kit that jumps out at you immediately. It's not until after you start looking at it more closely that you actually pay attention to the finish. And there's been a couple times, this isn't a diss to any modelers, but there have been times at shows where we'll go to a category to look at, like as spectators, and say, oh, that's a cool model. And then you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, they didn't really do a great job. They didn't stick the landing. Like the paintwork isn't great. There's brush strokes or whatever. Be like, okay. But it's like, there's still that initial, like, that's a cool model. And you go to that. And I think that kind of goes into judging 1, 2, 3, where the judges will see a specific model and that will be the one that they start championing. And I think that's kind of how you end up with certain models placing and others not, is if you're looking at a really cool, obscure subject or unique subject with like a mediocre finish versus a really well finished bog standard Panzer IV with like no aftermarket, even if the finish on that model is perfect and really advanced, you're not going to care because it's a, out of box to me, a Panzer IV versus, oh, here's a, I don't even know, like 1/16 Tiger with a scratch built interior. Like, even if the finish on it is meh, that's still a cool subject and that'll take kind of the lion's share of their attention. So I think that's one of the other things that you're going to run into with 1, 2, 3 style judging.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing's perfect. There's always opportunity. I think some shows do it better than others, but yeah, listeners, tell us what you think. Tell us if you take scale modeling as seriously as we do. We're unapologetic in this segment. We want to acknowledge the individuals that take this seriously, that put their, blood, sweat, and tears into pieces and look to deliver something special. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with slamming something together and throwing it into a display only. Again, you can model however you want. We're just going to get why so serious? That's what we're going to do here. We got a little serious.
Jensen, what did you have to say? You said you had some comments. I need to hear them because you haven't said anything.
Yeah, so a little thing I had was an experience of being told that whilst judging, not allowed to score anyone less than a 6, which instantly, as soon as I heard it, I side-eyed Jackson and Ian straight away, because that just didn't sit right with me. And then later on, and I was like following JB around the trade room, having a right whinge about it, because I just thought, I don't agree with that in any way whatsoever. For me, if a piece of work warrants having a 6 or less in a certain category, it's going to get a 6 or less, because otherwise we're just out of niceness gifting awards to modelers. And for me, that defeats the whole purpose of contest or competition. You shouldn't just turn up and get it because we want to make modelers happy. Granted, if that's your objective, wonderful. Like, I get not wanting to dishearten or upset modelers who make the effort and put their work in competitions, but in the same breath, if it's a pretty big competition or a national convention, there's got to be a standard. And I think not being told that we can't score things below a certain mark because we don't want to upset modelers doesn't sit right with me at all. Don't agree with it. I think that's absolutely just contrary to what competition and contest should be about. Like, you don't, I hate to bring up the Olympics, but like, don't go to the Olympics. Like, yeah, but we don't, that athlete's trained all year. We don't want to upset them by scoring them lowly, do we? It's like, no, if the performance or the execution deserves the number it gets the number it gets. If that makes me an arse, but that's where I stand on it.
And also, I think it's important to caveat too, you're really focusing on the upper echelon of, tiers in terms of modeling. You're not talking about like the basic modeler here or the intermediate. Like when you are considered, in the master class or in the advanced class at certain shows, whatever that top tier of modeler is, there's a certain like standard. And I'm all for encouraging the beginners, the basics, the intermediates to grow, learn, feel encouraged. But once you reach that certain level, there is an expectation because it is a standard. And it's no different than at SMC. Like masters there. Like, if there ain't no golds worthy, guess what? There ain't no golds getting awarded. Like that's what holds the standard of the show and drives people to reach that level. And compromising that only, compromises the show's integrity in terms of how it rewards achievement.
100% agree. And I saw Zach's eye rolls because we mentioned SMC again. But no, yeah, I completely agree. Like, say, if it doesn't deserve it, it doesn't get it. And like, it's like you said, I'm not talking about like the beginner or the junior or the entry level models, like not being brutal against them. But if you're going to enter advanced or master, great. Not that you think you're at that level, but if you're confident enough to put your work into that level, you are confident enough to also receive that level of critique that a advanced or master deserves. Maybe I'm an outlier here in thinking that, but that's just something that as soon as I heard it, kind of like side-eyed a bit. I was just like, okay, don't agree with that. I mean, I'm still going to judge. I'll still do the job, but hearing it, I just thought that's not how I'm going to operate.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've been to SMC twice now, and I entered Master both times, and I didn't place either time, and that has never deterred me from the show. Was it disheartening? Yeah, because I was like, oh, I think I'm at Master level, like bronze level maybe. Didn't even get highly commended. I could have very easily been like, screw this show, they don't recognize my work, whatever, but I didn't take it like that. I knew the stakes when I was entering Master. Like, there is a chance that I'm not at this level. I'm still going to do it because, this might sound cocky, but I know I could enter at, I can't remember the level beneath that, intermediate or whatever SMC calls it. Standard. I know I could enter at standard in place, but to me, that's not the goal I want to achieve. I want to have that high level of critique. I want to put forward my best work. And if that best work meets the criteria of Master, then I want to be rewarded for that. But if I don't get it, it's only going to encourage me to work on my skills more and actually meet that bar. And not once has it deterred me from going to SMC. I know I've talked about like, oh, maybe I won't bring anything to SMC this year. That's not because I'm like, well, screw this. It's more so I know where the bar is. I don't know if I'm there yet. So I might not bring anything and just keep, honing my skills. But it has never deterred me from the show itself. It's an amazing show. Everything about it's great. The competition's phenomenal and so well run. It's never made me just like put my hat up and being like, no more SMC. Like, they don't recognize me.
No, 100%. Like you say, it's a bit disheartening afterwards. So you're like, oh, I thought I maybe had a shot and I got nothing. After having a little sulk, which is what I do for a day or so, I'm like, okay, simple, do better. Actually do some projects and improve on them and get them to the standard that I thought I was at. Like I say, I've never been like, oh, screw this show, I'm not coming back. No, it's just like, okay, do better next time.
Yeah, 100%. And again, this is some may consider a tough topic, but it's one that we all think about, I think. And please, listeners, let us know what you think.
If you've gone to a show, a competition, and entered it, there's not a snowball's chance in hell you've not had a conversation or a thought just like this. You just have, right? Like it's human nature. So yeah, if you haven't been to a show or entered a contest, you should. I mean, they're great. I think they're fantastic. It's a great way to show off your models, a great way to learn more about modeling and all that stuff. So yeah.
All right. With that spice of life out of the way, we're going to go to something a little bit more exciting for some listeners, and I'm going to turn it over to our friend across the pond.
Turns out this is incredibly popular. A few people mentioned it at AMPS. Speaking of AMPS, if you would like to be one of the many attendees who was fabulously representing the Plastic Posse, you can buy all of your stylish, very well presented Plastic Posse merchandise at loungetrousers.com or the very long website of Plastic Posse Podcast Spring. Just type that in Google and it'll come up.
Outstanding.
That's as good as an advertisement you're getting this week.
I love it. I love it. And, we'll add a few more things on there. We have the St. Scott shirt that the beta version went live at AMPS. I think it hit a pretty good, good level in terms of entertainment. We also had the St. Nickelpenny shirt. We'll ask for licensing rights on that. That was a nice one. And then also we've started to produce some of Peter Fidlodsky's Mona Lisa, I should say, group build emblems. So all of those were wonderful hits at AMPS. Definitely going to put them up on the site, so check them out. with that, we're going to conclude this episode. It's been a lot of fun. We've gone a little bit longer than we've expected, but it's been a wild ride. It's been a fun ride. Can't wait to talk to you all in 2 weeks. But with that, we're going to wrap the show. Thank you again for listening along. We're going to leave out the yeehaw, but this isn't a goodbye. This is a see you again. And thanks all. Happy modeling. Keep calm. Model on. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. One of the ways to support the Plastic Posse is through Patreon and becoming a Plastic Posse Outrider. Just go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Plastic Posse, to set up a recurring donation or simply a one-time payment. We really appreciate your support. This gives you early access to episodes, access to the hosts, chance to appear on a podcast, exclusive PPP content and merch. We supported a lot of our Patreons at the AMP show with some shirts. So please jump in, support us. We love it. It's really what makes this show happen every 2 weeks. And we can't thank you enough. And you've become great friends. And I'm going to turn over to Zach to talk about who those folks are, followed by Jackson.
All right, here we go. All right, let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These contributors help the posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for their support. We want to wish Brett Marquette the very best. Hang in there. The Quiet Corner Modeler, Daryl Miller, Rob Booth, David Clark, Richard Lane, Robbie Knopfs, Wesley Becker, Eric Daglish, David Wassel, Matt Tupman, Glenn Fellon, Eric Neff, Zach Pease, Greg Williams, Nick Wolf, Brian Clark, Sean Earl, Black Hat Scale Models, Craig Jarbo, Red Beach One Studios, James Morando, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Eric Curvena, John Hale, Eric Kane, Logan Hansen, Paul Burdett, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Rob Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Ken Childress, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, The Voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lowell, Eric Calais, Ethan Eidenmill, Steve Bakey, Patrick Brown, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Lee Fogel, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, John Everett, Aaron Cook, Mark Bradley, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
Let's not forget our posse foreman. This crew is made up of posse outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand, and we also thank them for their support. Aussie Modeler, Graham, Keith, Dwayne, AK Armor, Bill, JAK, Casey, Therese, Raphael, Russ, Stephen, Mickle, LeVar, Gil, Mike, Michael, Steve, Scott, Emery, The Krieger, Aussie Modeler, William, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, Warhoff Models, G. Baker, Tom Stuff, Crazy Loca, Len, Cliff, Damian, Cody, Nukeman Mike, Irish Pat, Paul, Ivones Models, Mr. Grizz, myself, Joel, Chris, Jamie, MD Models, Papa Steve Munsell, JV, Eric, Matthew, and David.
And of course, our $1 and free posse outriders like Greg Friddle and Robin van der Sand. Thanks, guys.